expected. So, as I said, a mixed bag of weather for our Wednesday. Welcome to the show. We'll get you through that and more. Let's say good morning to the team. Mr. Darren Marash is our YouTube producer. Hi, Darren. You might be watching the show stream there. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adiyemi behind the controls. Abby's our lead tech on the program and will be on air covering your forecasts throughout the show. And Mr. Corey Funk is also here with us. Corey directs Information Radio and will be on air covering your commute, which in Winnipeg is pretty straight ahead now that spring has decided to stick around today. It is also Earth Day, and we have some special programming for you, which we'll talk about after we hear headlines with Heather Wells. She joins us in our news center. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, some neighbors are raising a stink over a wastewater lagoon attached to a new Hutterite colony on their doorstep. The lagoon is part of a development by Crystal Springs Colony in the Arm of Armstrong. The Arm of Gimli has opposed the project, saying it will create negative consequences downstream. And the Crown is appealing a ruling allowing a Winnipeg man convicted in a senior scam in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia to get out of prison. That story and more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
I mentioned Earth Day. So today, in the first hour of the show, we're going to look globally at the targets set for different countries and see how we're doing. And then we're going to bring it back to here in Manitoba. And we're going to talk to environmentalists from two different generations. They're going to share what motivates them to do their work here in Manitoba. They're also going to tell us what they think about how we're doing with being green. And how would you feel if the news you read every morning was mostly accurate? We're going to hear from the co-founder of Boring News. It's an AI-assisted news site.
On cue.
You're hungover and you got home at 3 o'clock in the morning. Where were you?
When she was first cast in the Oscar-winning movie One Battle After Another, the actor Chase Infinity had almost 0 credits to her name. She'll be here to tell you how a K-pop dance video led to that role and meeting Margaret Atwood while making her new show, The Testaments. Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Iranian state media is reporting 3 ships have been attacked in the Strait of Hormuz this morning by Iran's Revolutionary Guard. There are fears this could jeopardize the ceasefire U.S. President Donald Trump agreed to extend just last night. The CBC's Tom Perry is in Jerusalem for us this morning. Tom, what do we know about the vessels that were attacked today?
Well, one of the vessels, a Greek-flagged ship, suffered damage to its bridge. A Panamanian vessel was hit in the hull. And a third ship that's also Panamanian flagged reported no damage. Now, the Revolutionary Guards say they've seized at least 2 of those ships, saying they were, quote, operating without the required authorization and for manipulating navigation systems. Now, this comes after a U.S. Navy destroyer opened fire on an Iranian cargo vessel this week and then took that ship into custody. When U.S. President Donald Trump announced yesterday he was extending his country's ceasefire with Iran, he said the U.S. naval blockade of Iran would continue. Iran's foreign minister has called that an act of war, a violation of the ceasefire agreement. And we did hear from Donald Trump today. He posted, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz open immediately. Starving for cash, losing $500 million a day, military and police complaining that they're not getting paid. SOS. So Trump giving no indication he plans to loosen the U.S. blockade, and Iran apparently not backing down either.
With that as a backdrop, Tom, let's talk about the status of the peace talks that were supposed to be taking place between the U.S. and Iran.
Well, at this point, there are no talks planned. Pakistan was preparing to host a second round of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran this week. U.S. President J.D. Vance was supposed to fly to Islamabad, but Iran said it would not attend as long as that U.S. naval blockade remained in place. So the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran has been extended, but this conflict has not been resolved, and tensions in the Strait of Hormuz are continuing to rise.
CBC's Tom Perry in Jerusalem for us. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
The International Criminal Court is this morning rejecting an appeal by former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte. He's facing charges of crimes against humanity and challenged the court's jurisdiction, arguing the tribunal has no legal authority to hear the case. Here is some of the court's decision.
Having rejected the entire appeal, the appeals chamber considers that the defense request for the immediate and unconditional release of Mr. Duterte is moot.
The 81-year-old Duterte is being held at The Hague as the ICC investigates his violent anti-drug campaign, which ran from 2011 to 2019. Human rights groups claim state police and vigilantes murdered unarmed drug suspects on a massive scale. Philippine authorities deny the allegations. The Washington Post says a report on the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccine is being blocked from publication. Sources say the report found the vaccine reduced emergency department visits and hospitalizations for healthy adults by nearly half this past winter. But the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will not be publishing those details in its scientific journal. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been in charge of the CDC and is critical of vaccines. A spokesperson for his department says there were concerns about this report's methodology. Now that Mark Carney's Liberals have a majority government, they're moving to take control of House of Commons committees. House Leader Stephen McKinnon says his party will seek to change the standing orders to ensure Liberals get a majority vote. For more, let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. So, Janice, why is the government doing this?
John, all bills go through committee. So if you have a majority of votes, you can speed up that process. And committees in recent minority parliaments have also spent a lot of their time and energy on inquiries, probing priority issues of their choosing. When you've got the majority of the voices on a committee, you can steer those too. The makeup of House committees is not standard. It's set at the start of each new parliament. And the rules say that each party's representation should reflect the seat count of recognized parties. Now, somewhat extraordinarily, of course, 1 year in now, we've had a significant change from a minority to a majority government. And while it's somewhat unprecedented to revisit the committee lists midway, Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon said last night that his motion reflects the principle that a majority in the House means a majority on committee.
And so, Janice, the opposition not happy about this.
No. Conservatives have already sent out a fundraising email saying Liberals are out to stack the deck to shut down investigations into scandals, conflict and waste, arguing this is a manufactured majority as a result of recent floor crossings. So Liberals should have to stick with the committees that reflected last year's general election, not what's unfolded since. But once the Liberals' new MPs take up their seats, this motion's going to pass. And the biggest loser in all of this may be the Bloc Québécois. Up till now, it's held the swing vote on committees. It could broker deals to side with the government to get what it wanted or oppose it alongside Conservatives. All committees are still going to have a Bloc MP, but that vote will no longer call the shots.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford is still feeling the headwinds over his decision to purchase a private jet. Ford quickly backtracked following public backlash and pledged the province would sell the nearly $29 million jet. But as the CBC's Sarah McMillan reports, there are now questions about how the aircraft could even have been used.
I've gone east, west, north, south.
And doing all that travel isn't easy, says Ontario Premier Doug Ford, defending his government's now cancelled plans for a private jet. The Challenger 650 could take him throughout Canada to the U.S., even non-stop to the United Kingdom. Ford says it would also have helped him get to remote communities within Ontario. He was asked where in the province it would not be able to land.
Just up in the far, far north where there's dirt runways.
In fact, the plane likely can't use most Ontario airports. Bombardier's technical specifications lay out minimum takeoff and landing distances. Ontario has 179 federally recognized operational airports. As of 2021, only 19 have runways that are long enough, though aviation experts say some shorter runways could be suitable if the plane is not fully loaded. The province already has planes that can access much shorter runways, including a 6-passenger jet purchased by the Ontario Provincial Police late last year. Stefan Watkins is a research consultant who specializes in flight tracking.
Why the OPP would come to a different conclusion and pick a completely different plane that seems more suitable to Ontario runways than the Premier would choose for doing travel allegedly within the province as well as internationally, I didn't understand.
Our analysis shows the OPP plane will be able to take off from at least 117 airports. We presented our findings to the Premier's office. They didn't comment on them directly. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
And for more on this story, you can head to our website. We asked each premier across the country how they fly when traveling for provincial business. You can read their responses at cbcnews.ca. New underwater drone footage from one of Ontario's Great Lakes is revealing what researchers are calling a fish city. CBC News has given a preview of the footage to mark today, Earth Day. Then, as Colin Butler reports, scientists say the images offer a rare glimpse of deeper changes in the Great Lakes.
It's a good spot to go fishing.
Yvonne Drabert says it's a well-known local fishing hole, the warm waters surrounding Bruce Nuclear.
No one had really had a chance to look under the water there, and it was pretty jaw-dropping.
Jaw-dropping because the footage was filmed using a $250,000 underwater drone, one of only 10 in the world, and the only one operating in fresh water.
Here we go.
Beneath the waves, it reveals a hidden world, sleek salmon slicing through water, whiskered catfish cruising below, silver schools of gizzard shad shining in the thousands. Zach Melnick is the pilot.
We kind of called it Fish City because you have a dozen or more species all going about their fishy things.
What attracts these fish is warmth. Water drawn from Lake Huron to cool Bruce Nuclear is released back, warmer than the surrounding lake. It looks abundant, but University of Toronto fish biologist Nick Mandrak says that can be an illusion.
I think the fact that they're concentrating at thermal plumes because there's a lack of food in the main lake is an unhealthy sign of what the mussels have done.
Those mussels, invasive zebra and quagga, have filtered huge amounts of plankton from the lake, eating the fish's food and leaving the water startlingly clear. So not a hidden marine paradise at all, but a sign that the lake isn't thriving, it's thinning. Colin Butler, CBC News, Port Elgin, Ontario.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg, and you're on CBC. Thanks for joining us in the morning show. I feel terrible saying how nice it's going to be in southern Manitoba today. And that is because it's quite a different story that's going to be coming for the north. Starting tonight, we've got quite a system moving in that's going to bring some snow. And over the next 3 days, we're talking between 30 and 50 centimeters of snow to parts of the north. Meantime, Winnipeg, well, we'll save the daytime high reveal for Abby. It'll be like a baby reveal this morning. You'll be happy no matter what, I promise. Let's talk about what's coming up on the show. Speaking of the weather, it is Earth Day, and there are all kinds of things going on. So we're going to hear from the sustainability coordinator over at the Forks about what they're doing to celebrate and how you can join in on the festivities. We also, on this Earth Day, are going to widen things out. As you know, the world agreed to climate targets 10 years ago now. Some countries are meeting them. Canada is not. We will have a look at the status of that around the world. So that's coming up all in this first hour of the morning show. Let's get into headlines and other stories. Heather Wells, of course, will be with us throughout the entire morning, and she's here now to tell us what's making news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's Justice Department is hiring a team to collect unpaid fines instead of asking a collection agency. Right now, the province asks a private company to seek payment on overdue fines like speeding tickets. The province says that agency earns an 18% commission. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says that's too much. We're going to hear what he's proposing coming up. And Peguis First Nation is putting the finishing touches on its flood defenses. The Interlake community's been sandbagging since last week with forecasts of a potential for very serious flood in the coming days. Doug Thomas, the Director of Communications at Peguis, says 115 homes considered most at risk have been protected so far. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right, team check-in, Heather Wells. Yesterday we started the show by saying how nice it was going to be, and then we asked what we were going to do. So did you get out and about yesterday?
I did. I went on a long walk for about an hour, got a little bit of a suntan.
Nice.
So that was nice. But my feet this morning are so sore.
Oh, you need new runners.
I need better shoes.
That's what that means. Abby, you were going to do LeBarrier Park, or you were thinking about it. Did you get out yet?
Yes, I did. I was out. I sat on the bench. I spent some time, just trying to absorb my green therapy. I was just looking at the grass, trying to pop out and underneath those freezing soil that we still have out there. And of course, I went to the car wash.
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. Abby always goes to the car wash. His car is pristine. I love how you frame that, though, green therapy. It really is, right? It's like breathing out. Corey's goal, if I remember correctly, was to do something with kids.
Yes, I picked up the kids from daycare on my bike, popped in the bike trailer, and biked over to Wildwood for a barbecue with the fam. So,
Ooh,
yeah, it was
I like
lovely.
that.
Yeah, it was good.
And I said I was going to get out in my yard and do what I could, and I did that as well. Did some cleanup. I found some old Christmas stuff that I guess was like underneath some fallen cedar branches. I'm like, oh, that's where those Christmas things went. Okay, they used to be in a planter. They blew over. So today, if you're looking to do something outside in southern Manitoba, the weather is certainly going to cooperate once again. So, Abby, what is the actual forecast telling us for today?
Well, the good news is the southern part of the province, we will be enjoying this winter-like condition. Most of the regions down south will get into the 20s today. Winnipeg, we're starting at 9 degrees at the Forks, and we're looking at 6 degrees at the airport at this time. We are really heading to this beautiful sun-drenched high of 22 for the city of Winnipeg today before the clouds will roll in later in the evening, and we might see some showers overnight. And similar conditions we're seeing across the southern regions. We're looking at temperatures hovering around 10 degrees towards Morden, Winkler, Altoona, down to the U.S. border at this time. While up north, we are looking at all those warnings and storm watches we have. Like we have a snowfall warning impacting Flin Flon all the way towards Gillam, Shimattawa this morning. While we have the freezing rain warning also impacting Flin Flon surrounding areas. And then if you look towards Norway House and Oxford House, we're seeing there's more like winter storm watch, really 5 to 10 millimeters of rain and even freezing rain coming your way. And it's more like a mixed bag of winter and mid-spring really hitting the northern part of the province later this evening. So while the south will be enjoying some sunshine, up north it's going to be a different story. Winnipeg right now, we're at 9. We're heading to 22. We might even get to 23.
Wow, hey. We got to look up the last time we were there because obviously it's going to be last year sometime, but it's been a while. The commute, Corey, how's it looking?
Pretty good so far. I will give a warning about one big mean old pothole right on Westminster in the curb lane, right outside the food fair at Maryland there. Saw a bunch of cars. I actually had to slow down and go around it there. It was just kind of snapping up trying to eat people's tires yesterday. So look out for that. If you do see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's get started talking about Earth Day on this Wednesday, April 22nd. If you've been meaning to patch that hole in your old pair of blue jeans, or you're looking to fix up your bike as the spring weather gets into gear, the Forks has some Earth Day programming for you. Joining us live this morning in studio to tell us all about everything going on is Helga Jacobson. She's a sustainability coordinator over at the Forks. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this weather, you guys, for your outdoor stuff today, this is amazing.
We're thrilled.
Yeah.
Thrilled.
No
It could have
kidding.
gone a very different way.
Yeah, no doubt. So your theme this year is actually repair.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about that and why you chose that.
Yeah, one of the things that we focus on primarily at the Forks in our activities towards Target Zero is keeping things out of the landfill. We want to make sure that things that have a life can continue to live and be used and be loved. So we really wanted to keep our focus on that and kind of on circularity.
I mentioned bikes and jeans, so tell me a little bit more about some of the things you have planned.
Yeah, so we have physical repair. So textile repair is a big focus. We've got Arts Junction and All You Can Patch Buffet coming in at about noon. And so you can come down and work with them to do embroidery embellishments on your clothing, so visible mending, as well as adding patches. They have a patch that they've designed with a local artist, a lino cut, so you can come and get creative. We also have a fixing fashion market and then a show later in the evening. So you can shop secondhand clothing as well as repaired and reimagined upcycled clothing. That'll be starting at 11 and going until 6, and then we'll move right into our fashion show at 7. We also have some environmental repairs, so thinking about revegetation and soil health through CPAWS, who will be at our canopy from 11 until 4. Then we also have Turtle Tours. We'll be doing a special run of tours from an Indigenous perspective on land stewardship and thinking about how the earth repairs. We also have the wrench coming down for bicycle repairs, and then we have an e-waste drop-off for those unrepairable items.
So you've got a super busy day ahead.
Very busy day, yeah. It's always a busy day at the Forks.
How does it fit into the programming today, like that idea of repair, fit into the work that you do at the Forks every day and your goals?
Yeah, I think a really great example, first and foremost, we like to think about the R ladder. So instead of focusing on reduce, reuse, recycle, we're looking at a more robust system of hierarchy of understanding how to manage materials. So we have a really nice recycling program, but we really want to keep things out of the landfill in the first place. So recycling, of course, is awesome, but if you can manage to keep it away from there, then that's even better. So one thing that we do is we recycle all of our fryer grease into fuel for our ice resurfacer. So instead of allowing it to go into the normal recycling processes, we use it on site, and that reduces our carbon emissions. We also do composting, which is the ultimate repair work. So taking all of the waste that normally would have been packaging or food waste that goes to a landfill site, then we're able to manage it on site and produce compost that we then distribute in our orchard and onto our grass and all of that good stuff. So that's kind of the ultimate vision of repair in my perspective, is thinking about that instead of cradle to grave of items, doing cradle to cradle. So keeping that circle going.
You guys also have another phrase that I really like, where the two greens meet.
Yeah.
What does that refer to?
That refers to where financial responsibility meets environmental responsibility. So thinking about the green of cash and the green of sustainability. So that's another piece of the whole repair puzzle, is that, when you're repairing, you're also saving money. And don't we all need a little bit more cash these days?
Yes.
So we're at the Forks, all of our activities align with financially responsible activities and helping steward the earth. So things like going with geothermal, we invested a large dollar sum, so about $2 million, to install geothermal in our market, because we were realizing that it's very challenging to heat and cool a 100-year-old building that was once an outdoor market. So we installed that, and it's paid for itself over. So that's one really great example, but a lot of the activities that we do, like our recycling program, we're able to recoup finances by recycling appropriately and reducing our emissions by managing materials that would otherwise be destined for the landfill.
How can people find more information? If they're listening this morning, they might go, oh yes, but what time is everything? And should they go to their website or the social pages?
Either are great, right? We do have an events calendar on our website, so that's a good spot for it. But there's a lot of really wonderful content that's come out from our comms team on our Instagram. And there you'll also see Reclothify, who's sponsoring the fashion show and the market. And they've kind of tagged in. So if you want to understand a little bit more about them, they're fabulous. So you'll find a lot of information on either of those spots.
Thanks for coming in early. I always say special gift for the early birds, and awesome that the weather's going to be perfect for this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Hopefully it'll be packed over at the Forks. Nice to see you.
I hope so too. Thanks.
That is Helga Jacobson in live with us at CBC. So sustainability coordinator at the Forks is the work she does. Events today for Earth Day start at 10 o'clock at the Forks. As you heard, all kinds of things going on. And I think it's really interesting, because right now you kind of feel this generational shift where thrifting and patching and all of that, when it comes to the clothing aspects and repairing, it's really having a big resurgence, especially in some of those younger generations. So those old skills that you may not have had before, to sew, to create, to make clothing, are really coming back. And if you want to learn how to do some of that, you can do that at the Forks today.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
6:22 a.m. going to be lovely in Winnipeg, mainly clear right now. It is 9 degrees. We're heading for a high of 22 under lots of sunshine. Well, let's continue talking about Earth Day today, which it is. But let's go back in time. This is hard for me to believe that this was 10 years ago, but April 22nd, 2016, nearly every country in the world, including Canada, came together to fight climate change.
I now declare the Paris Agreement for Climate Change open for signature.
That is former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon announcing the landmark Paris Agreement. The basic commitment was to limit global warming to below 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial times. So here we are a decade later, and a lot of those climate conversations continue. Let's look at how far the world has come and where things have stalled. Sarah Birch is with us via Zoom. She's Executive Director of the Waterloo Climate Institute. Good morning.
Good morning.
So for those that don't remember when the Paris Agreement was signed, can you outline briefly the expectations and the hope for implementation?
Sure. Yeah, this was a big moment for the global climate change community for sure. It followed on the Kyoto Protocol, which came before it. And the goal here was to bring together really every country in the world, not just the wealthy industrialized ones, to make pledges to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and also to work towards protecting communities in light of the unfolding climate change impacts, like the extreme events, so to push forward on adaptation. So this was a big moment for Canada. Of course, this was a splashy re-entry onto the global stage when it came to climate change. This was a big moment for Justin Trudeau to say that we're back, we're in the mix on climate change, and we intend to follow through on pretty ambitious commitments.
And so since that time, 10 years later, how has the project panned out if you look globally?
Yeah, it's a mixed report card, I would say, certainly. So looking back, I think that probably the most important headline is that we are not on track to reducing emissions at the pace and the scale that we'd need to reach those goals, that goal of limiting warming to well below 2 degrees, even 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial average temperatures. So we're not yet on track. Global emissions are just cresting, they're just leveling off and haven't yet started to decline. However, there's some good news there too. If we look over the last 10 years, there are actually more than a dozen countries that have successfully reduced their greenhouse gas emissions at pace we need. And so that means that we have pathways to follow. We have examples, and the technologies now exist at a cost that is economically competitive. So we've seen the cost of renewable energy, solar, wind, and the battery storage we need. That's plummeted, making renewable energy cost competitive in many cases, the cheaper option relative to fossil fuels. So that's heartening. I think the transition is well underway.
Who's the leader in that? If we have a model to follow, who's done the best?
Well, there's a number of countries that are leading. So I would say Germany, certainly Denmark, Sweden, Portugal's done really well. Even the United States, sort of an unexpected case. Because the United States has been moving away from coal-fired power, which is an incredibly abundant source of greenhouse gas emissions and air quality issues, that has caused a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. So we have several good examples to follow.
And we need to follow because Canada has not made as much movement as some had hoped, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're unfortunately 7th among the G7. So among those wealthy, industrialized counterparts of ours, we're 7th among 7. So we've made the least progress on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We're the only one whose emissions have gone up since 1990 rather than come down. But the good news is that since 2005, our emissions have been coming down too. So they have come down just over 10% since 2005. That's a long way off from our target though, and we're not on track to reducing emissions by 40 to 45%, which is by 2030, which is what we've promised.
Why not? Like, what could get us there? And has it just been lack of political will for us, being 7 of 7 right now still?
Yeah, there's a number of reasons why. They're not excuses, but are explanations for Canada's case. Of course, we have a massively active and growing fossil fuel sector here in Canada. So that's responsible for more than a third of our total greenhouse gas emissions. That's just the emissions that we produce getting those resources out of the ground, not burning them later. So it's an enormous source of greenhouse gas emissions, buildings and transportation here in Canada. Part of that is due to the vast space we have here. We have long distances to travel. We have a colder climate, but that's true of other countries that have made more progress than us. So we have started to take steps towards a transition towards electric vehicles, for instance, but we're not moving nearly as quickly on that front as Europe. And it's not the way we'd want to see this happen, but the conflict in Iran, the uncertainty and conflict over the last several weeks has caused an incredible spike in demand for electric vehicles in Europe. It's up almost 51% in a place where EVs were already taking off much faster than here. So we're seeing the transition speed up.
It's interesting because you brought up the conflict, between U.S., Israel, and Iran, because later this morning we're going to be talking about whether or not, and also why it seems that climate and environment seem to drop to the bottom of the list when, global headlines are dominated, and understandably so, but by war, by trade. But climate somehow just seems to be this optional thing that politicians put it on their list. How concerning is that as we head into this next 10 years?
You're totally right. That's accurate. Climate and environmental issues writ large tend to get bumped off the agenda when we're facing an economic crisis or conflict. I would say the tone of that conversation, I think, is changing quite significantly. We're starting to tally up the costs of unbridled climate change, and that is an enormous economic drag. So if we're aiming for prosperity, if we're aiming for economic resilience, then tackling climate change is absolutely essential to that. And the conflict in Iran shows just how volatile and how costly a global energy system rooted in fossil fuels is. So it's a major incentive to move towards energy independence, to move towards renewable energy sources. And once we see, I think we need to tell better stories and gather more widely available evidence for all the ways that tackling climate change makes our lives better. It makes our cities healthier. We're moving our bodies more in cities that rely more on active and public transport. We have better air quality, we can conserve nature. The more we frame climate as a human issue, not simply an environmental one, and tell the stories of the co-benefits, all of the good things that emerge when we tackle climate change meaningfully, I think the more this will become, a clear, firm part of our agenda, and will make faster progress going forward.
Really appreciate having you on this Earth Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
That is Sarah Birch with us live, the Executive Director of the Waterloo Climate Institute and a Professor in Canada Research Chair in Transformative Climate Governance. Now, in the next hour of the show, we're going to bring it close to home here. One Manitoban recalls protesting environmental disaster in the 1970s. The other organized against a mining project in Manitoba just last summer. Today, they are two people from two different generations, and they're going to bring us their local perspectives on Earth Day. Right now, here's CBC News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 9 degrees, and it is on this Earth Day a tale of two provinces. In the south, we have summer with a high today of 22. We even have a high UV index for the first time this year. And in the north and central Manitoba, all kinds of warnings from freezing rain, winter storm to snowfall warnings. 30 to 50 centimeters is possible by the weekend in parts of central and northern Manitoba. Well, Manitoba's Justice Department is hiring a team to collect unpaid fines rather than asking a collection agency. Right now, the province gets a private company to seek payment on overdue fines like speeding tickets. The province says that agency earns an 18% commission. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says that's too much. He wants to ditch the agency, so the province is the one collecting the overdue fines.
Here in Manitoba right now, the money's going to a private company, to private collection agencies. We know that if we bring it in-house, we can be more effective and we can collect more of those fines.
Wiebe says the government would have the power to make sure people pay up. For example, it could choose to block driver's license renewals until all penalties are settled. The RM of Gimli is not happy about the development of a new Hutterite colony on its doorstep. A project being proposed by the Crystal Springs colony in the neighboring RM of Armstrong would include residences, buildings, and livestock production, supporting up to 250 people. Gimli Mayor Kevin Chudd says the RM was not meaningfully consulted. He worries this project will leave the RM with potentially millions of dollars in expenses and very little benefit.
It's almost implied that Gimli will be having to fix roads, drainage, maintenance, waterways, all that stuff, because all the stuff flows from west to east, and this is right on the boundary.
People in Gimli have also expressed concern about a wastewater lagoon attached to the project. It is being discussed in hearings this week before Manitoba's Clean Environment Commission. The leaders of Peguis First Nation say they have never been so prepared for spring flooding. Over the past week and a half, the Interlake community has been a hive of activity with scores of engineers, community members, and volunteers all working to shore up defenses against the rising Fisher River. Hydrologist Ian Halkett has been working with the First Nation, and they expect to put the finishing touches on their projections and protections today.
I am thrilled. I am thinking that, wow, what an effort since last Sunday. It's just been tremendous. And the community has come together, the volunteer organizations that we've had out here helping.
Peguis identified 32 people whose medical needs suggested they should be preemptively moved away from the flood threat, but only 6 of those people chose to make the trip to Selkirk, the rest deciding to stay in Peguis. The Crown is appealing a ruling allowing a Winnipeg man convicted in a seniors scam in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia to get out of prison. 25-year-old Charles Gillen pleaded guilty last year to fraud and theft. Last month, a judge sent him home to Manitoba to serve a conditional sentence living with his grandparents. CBC's Ryan Cook has the story.
Charles Gillen acted as a courier for an organized crime syndicate sent to collect $139,000 from more than a dozen seniors in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. He was caught, pleaded guilty, and was given a 4-year sentence late last month by Newfoundland and Labrador Chief Justice Raymond Whalen. But Whalen also gave Gillen more than 2 years credit for time he spent in pretrial custody and on bail. That left him with just shy of 2 years left to serve. Whalen said Gillen was eligible to serve it as a conditional sentence, otherwise known as house arrest. CBC News has spoken with 2 law professors and 1 Crown prosecutor who all say that decision was wrong, that the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled conditional sentences are only eligible for sentences less than 2 years in total and not 2 years after credits are subtracted from a longer sentence. The Crown is now seeking to overturn the decision, filing documents with the province's appeals court stating the sentence should be set aside and Gillen should be returned to prison. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
The British military says 3 ships have been attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran opened fire on at least 1 cargo ship it says ignored warnings to stop. All of this comes after U.S. President Donald Trump extended the ceasefire with Iran hours before it was due to expire yesterday. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Young people are looking for jobs close to home in Steinbach. The area's Chamber of Commerce hosted a job fair this week. 25-year-old Max Franz from just outside Steinbach hopes to find a job where he can help others close to home.
The future is looking more and more uncertain, especially for younger people, for the younger generation. With gas prices going up, housing prices going up, food going up, a lot of us are feeling the pressure to become local more and more in a sense, not straying so far from home.
Tessa Massey at the Steinbach Chamber of Commerce says more than 100 jobs are currently posted in Steinbach. You can find the latest news throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, as Heather started the newscast, she's quite right. Started the newscast by saying it's a tale of 2 provinces really today when it comes to the weather. So Abby's here now with our regional forecast. He's going to break it all down.
Yeah, Marcy, we are bracing for that major winter storm as this southern sunny skies contrast what those freezing rain warnings, snowfall warnings we have across central and the northern regions this morning. Now, while the south will be enjoying highs close to 23 degrees, the north will be facing more like heavy snowfall and ice build-up expected to exceed 5 millimeters. So be prepared for that. Driving might be hectic. That's tracking it all the way, let's just say from the PAR towards Churchill this morning. We have warnings for that part of the province. For the city of Winnipeg and nearby areas in the Red River Valley region, we're going to see sunny skies, a bit of south winds. It's going to become a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon. Currently 9 degrees at the Forks, and we're tracking 6 degrees at the airport. It's clear for now. Temperatures going to be hovering around 9 degrees under these breezy conditions before we get to our expected high of 22 degrees. And of course, tonight, there's a good chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorm in the mix, followed by a mix of sun and clouds tomorrow. Similar conditions we're seeing across the southern regions. In the Pembina Valley region, modern towards Headingley, currently temperatures around 10 degrees. Already seeing sunshine there, warming up to 23. In the Westman region, Brandon, we are currently sitting at 4 degrees there. You get to 17 later. Duffin all the way towards Russell, we're looking at 0 there. Highs around 11 degrees. In the Interlake region, Gimley's at 7 degrees with some clouds. You get to 18 later in the day. Then there's northern part, the central into the northern part of the province where we have this freezing rain and snowfall warnings. We're actually seeing temperatures between 0 and minus 10 at this time. The power flame film, we're looking at misty conditions there. Temperatures between minus 3 and 0. You get to 3 degrees later. Freezing rain begins later tonight for Thompson, Lynn Gillam. These regions are going to see cloudy conditions and light snow with temperatures around minus 10 and some areas getting minus 6. Highs would get close to 1 degree for some areas. While for Tudor Lake, we're looking at temperatures near minus 13, expecting high close to minus 7. Churchill, York region, frigid minus 10 at this time. High will be around minus 8. Something about Churchill this morning. I don't see any warning there, but every other region towards around Churchill, we have warnings there. So, it's just that tale of a kind of divide. You know, there's a split between summer-like south heat and, of course, those dangerous winter storm hitting the north. For the city, we're expecting a sunny day with a high of 22. Current temperature, let's just say 10 degrees right now.
Around 10. All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, how's the commute going?
Yeah, the only issue right now is St. Anne's, about 200 meters north of Ward. The city says lights are flashing red right now, so careful through there. Other than that, it's pretty smooth commute overall, but if you do see something, you can give me a call if you're walking your bike and you're driving. Would love to hear from you. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Corey. I didn't have my mic on there, but we're all thanking each other. A lot of thanks going on. How about a hello for Crystal Lee Ramlakan, who's here with our business news. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me.
Well played. The deadline for Canada and the U.S. to decide whether to continue our free trade agreement is looming. You're going to have some new insight in how that's progressing, or you have it actually, rather, and how that's progressing, right?
Yes, that's right. So Radio-Canada is reporting the U.S. is now demanding what amounts to an entry fee before formal negotiations even begin. So Radio-Canada is quoting sources high up in the government, and this entry fee would presumably be trade concessions. And Jean Charest, the former Premier of Quebec, has confirmed all of this, and he's just been appointed to Prime Minister Mark Carney's new advisory committee on U.S.-Canada economic relations. Now, meanwhile, Canada's chief trade negotiator to the U.S., Janice Charette, says she does not expect the two countries to resolve all of their issues by July 1st, and I guess certainly not after this news. But she says that does not mean the North American trade agreement will collapse. So in her first public remarks after taking on the position as the country's top trade negotiator in February, Charette says July 1st is really more of a checkpoint, not a cliff. So Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, who are part of the free trade agreement known as CUSMA, just have to decide what they want to do going forward with the deal by that July 1st deadline. So the agreement has helped Canada evade a raft of global tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. And the countries can extend the deal for 6 years or move to annual reviews, or they could, pull out altogether. But companies and business leaders say annual reviews could heighten uncertainty and scuttle investment and hiring.
Let's stay talking about trade. Some Canadian exporters could now get refunds after some of Trump's tariffs were struck down earlier this year. What do we know about it?
Yes, so we talked about this earlier this week that an application system has been launched for rebates, and now some Canadian small businesses are now able to claim refunds for these U.S. tariffs that were struck down as unconstitutional. But this does not include sectoral tariffs on things such as steel and aluminum. Those still remain. So these rebates are for those emergency tariffs that Trump had imposed. So the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says around 1/3 of Canadian exporters faced levies on goods that did not qualify for an exemption under CUSMA. And the goods were typically subject to tariffs of 35%. So, that's a lot of money. People probably would like to get that back. The CFIB says some firms were the importer of record, which could qualify them for a rebate because they were legally responsible for the shipment entering the U.S. And companies collectively put billions of dollars toward these tariffs. So the system is supposed to refund tariffs directly to the business that paid them, but they are not obligated to share the proceeds with customers. And if a claim is approved, it will take 60 to 90 days for a refund to be issued. More than 330,000 importers of record paid about $166 billion in tariffs. Now, the CFIB says it's too soon to know how many Canadian companies might apply. It is offering them guidance, though, noting the system requires firms to have a U.S. customs account and a U.S. bank account.
And finally, this morning, people could see some changes to labeling at the grocery stores on what kinds of stuff.
Yes, that's right. So Sobeys has expanded a partnership that will see it install digital shelf labels across more than 300 grocery stores. Montreal-based JR Tech Solutions says the deal includes the tech and infrastructure to roll out multicolored electronic shelf labels and a cloud-based system at stores. So the deployment is scheduled to start next month. And JR Tech Solutions says the deal positions smart labels at the heart of a broader digital transformation and will create value for both Sobeys and its customers. But, there have been concerns that this kind of technology allows for prices to change instantaneously in real time and for, dynamic pricing to happen. But supporters of the tech say it actually will allow for better inventory management and could even result in lower prices. Now, Sobeys' parent company Empire has been undergoing a number of changes since a new chief executive assumed the top role last fall. It moved to acquire Quebec-based food retailer Mayrand Food earlier this month, and it also shuttered its Voilà grocery delivery facilities in Alberta in January.
All right, Crystal Lee, that's your report for today. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystal Lee Ramlakan live with our business news on CBC. How you doing out there? It is Earth Day, 6:45 a.m. is the time right now. It's Wednesday, April 22nd. Hard to believe we're this late into April already. I don't know why I'm finding that hard to believe. This year's just kind of flying by in my estimation, but we certainly have been waiting for some nice, consistent warm weather. We're going to get it across the south today. Of course, the north is waiting for some snow and some systems that will begin tonight. Well, if you are interested in the climate, you probably are a fan of CBC's What on Earth, and there's a Winnipegger featured in one of the episodes. As the NHL playoffs get underway, there's a new documentary that explores another side of Canadian hockey culture, outdoor skating rinks, and the people who make them. And we have so many of them in Manitoba. So the documentary is called Ice Makers. It's the filmmaker, it's by the filmmaker behind a short YouTube series called Outdoor Hockey Club. Ice Makers, though, looks at the changing climate and how it's affecting outdoor rinks. And enter the Winnipegger. Winnipeg's Randy Frickus spoke with Laura Lynch, host of CBC's What on Earth, about his hope that sharing these stories could move the needle on climate action.
it can be very relatable, or it's easy to connect to. Like, even if someone doesn't play hockey, they know the guy who used to do the ice at their local rink, or their uncle used to make a rink or whatever. It's like there's always a way into the conversation. For me, it's connecting people, shared experiences, almost similar to like a shinny game where you just show up and it's a bunch of strangers and you all put your sticks in the middle. You didn't know most of the people before you got there, but then 2 minutes in, you're like figuring out plays with each other and having a good time. It's an easy way to connect with people, and I think this is an important topic also to talk about. So if this is the way in that can be accessible for folks, then that's kind of what I'm hoping to achieve. Sure, there's going to be bigger problems when it comes to climate change, like food systems and agriculture and wildfires and all that stuff. But childhood in Canada is going to drastically change if there's less access to skating and recreation activities like outdoor hockey. If you think about hockey now, the registration's super expensive, equipment's super expensive. If you're someone brand new to hockey, that's not likely an easy way in if there's no outdoor rinks. So I feel like that's the part that really resonates. This could really impact people that just love hockey for the love of the game and not, trying to make the NHL or anything like that.
If you want to hear more from Winnipeg's Randy Frickus, he was in conversation there with Laura Lynch, host of What on Earth, and that's on at 2 o'clock this afternoon here on CBC. It is 13 minutes now to 7 a.m. It's 9 degrees in Winnipeg and mainly clear. It's 2 and mostly cloudy in Brandon. It's also mostly cloudy in Thompson and -5. Well, before our next interview, we have time to slide in a little bit of music. So here's one of Donna Merrow's newer ones. This is Survivor.
See that you've been crying, written in the lines on your face, and your eyes can't be lying when you look at me that way. They say, come close, this ain't easy, believe me. I know what you're feeling, you're reeling from the heartbreak. It's just another test of your faith. Survivor, you've been down this road before, you're a fighter. When your spirit fell to pieces, yeah, you revived her. So hold on, survivor. I've seen you slay a dragon and find your way back home. Seen you stand up to the giants, leave them shaking in their bones, baby. Come close, this ain't easy, believe me. I know that you're stronger, hold on a little longer. It's just another test of your faith. Survivor, you've been down this road before, you're a fighter. When your spirit fell to pieces, yeah, you revived her. So hold on, survivor. You've been down this road before, you're a fighter. When your spirit fell to pieces, yeah, you revived her. Hold on, survivor. You've been down this road before, you're a fighter. When your spirit fell to pieces, yeah, you revived her. So hold on, survivor.
It's got some 80s vibes. I say that in the best of ways, hey? Like total 80s vibes. I love that. That's Donna Merrow. That's new music from him. It is Survivor. Came out in February. It is 9 minutes now to 7 a.m. Of course, Dawn, local artist from here in Manitoba. Let's turn our attention to things that are affecting all of us, and that is federal politics. Prime Minister Mark Carney has now named his Canada-U.S. new Economic Advisory Council for a new era. He says it's a big tent group.
I'm very pleased to have that group. It's a diverse group, leaders from the union movement, experts in industry, and CEOs in finance and across the economy.
Now, the council is being led by Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Infrastructure and Communities. It does include Conservatives Lisa Raitt and Aaron O'Toole as well. So what do we know about the federal strategy on Canada-U.S. trade? Viet Vu is with us, Manager of Economic Research at Toronto Metropolitan University. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy.
So a new Economic Advisory Council, a new approach to U.S. trade relationship. Do we understand more than that? Like, what are your headline thoughts?
I think my headline is that this is a refinement as opposed to an entirely new approach. The initial council Trudeau appointed was before we understood how the US was going to engage with us. That meant broad expertise in trade in addition to regional and labor perspectives being present. For the Carney Council, it gets specific while remaining bipartisan. There are those from trade-impacted sectors, from steel, lumber, auto manufacturing, and agriculture, which Manitobans know really well about. Then there are those who know the sticking points for the US, defense and dairy. But look, I don't expect every member of this new council to comment on every issue, but the council ensures that there's someone who can comment on every issue.
Fair enough. As far as you can tell, though, does it tell us anything about what Carney's strategy is going into CUSMA?
I think it's a defensive one, right? It's clear that Canada knows where the US will focus on during these negotiations. We have the big mouth down south from Trump and Lutnick to thank for that. It also doesn't quote further economic integration than is necessary. Importantly, the PM's team thinks talks will be limited instead of sprawling. He believes that despite rhetoric, the US thinks CUSMA is just too good to rip up. The council does leave open what they plan on AI and digital sovereignty, which is an important file. So hope there's more clarity on that soon.
Did Carney's video, this video he put out over the weekend to Canadians on Sunday, what did it reveal about that strategy?
I think it's two sides of the same coin, the difference being the time horizon. The announced advisory council responds to the acute needs of today and nothing more. The strategy he laid out for Canadians in the fireside chat is a long-term plan to reduce economic integration and dependence with the US beyond CUSMA, and perhaps beyond the Trump administration. But that doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen in a single political mandate. The Davos speech, the Liberal Convention speech, and now this fireside chat use similar language for what I think Carney hopes will eventually be called Carneyism, or Mark Carney's way of doing economics.
We're going to play a clip here because Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has said that the Prime Minister has, quote, no strategy. This is him talking to reporters in Ottawa just yesterday.
We're a year into this. He was elected on the single promise that he would negotiate a win with the U.S. And since that time, he's been losing.
Viet, do you have thoughts on that critique from Pierre Poilievre?
Well, if I were to interpret his comments as an economist, since I'm not a politician, I think much of Pierre Poilievre's criticism of Mark Carney has pointed out that these long-term investments and bets don't do anything for Canadians today. That a big project 5 years from now, or a trade deal that is agreed to 7 years from now, will not help Canadians struggling to pay rents today. I think the Prime Minister's response would be that he's doing both at the same time, and that it's important to invest in a future, that these things take time. But ultimately, Canadians will judge whether Mark Carney's plan is credible or not.
Before you go this morning, just remind us what the U.S. has said about the CUSMA negotiations.
Well, right up until a few weeks ago, much of the U.S. rhetoric was still about turning the temperature up, see what rattles us. This whole talk about having to have concessions before we even enter a negotiating table. We're used to that. It's highly Trumpian. But in the weeks since, as the formal negotiation process are just starting, they have been somewhat quieter. This is normal and is good. Negotiators tend to be a lot more candid with each other in closed-door settings. But what's clear is that they will likely begin a year-by-year renegotiation process instead of agreeing in June to renew the deal for another 16 years. The U.S. Trade Representative have already publicly said that he expects talks to go beyond July. So be prepared for a drawn-out process and for me to be back.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you again then. Thank you, Viet.
Thank you.
That's Viet Vu with us, Manager of Economic Research at Toronto Metropolitan University. It is right now 4 minutes to 7 o'clock, Wednesday morning, Earth Day, April 22nd. And we have coming up at the top of the clock your national and international news on World Report. Also, in the next hour of the show locally, we're going to have a conversation about what it takes to have a healthy democracy. Now, this comes in light of recent threats made against a Manitoba MLA, so we'll hear more about that. In addition, it's the time of year where that intense Beachbody fitness class might be starting up, and you might be thinking about that. But it also means doctors are seeing more cases of a potentially life-threatening complication. That's our medical column this morning, so Dr. Raj Bhardwaj will tell us all about what we're talking about there. And as I mentioned, it is Earth Day, so environmentalists from 2 generations are going to share what motivates them to do their work in Manitoba. They're also going to give us a bit of insight on where they think Manitoba is at when you look at the reality of how green we are or not. So stay tuned. That's all coming up. Well, when it comes to real green, we might see more of that in the south today with a sunny high of 22 degrees in Winnipeg today and the wind southeast 20 gusting to 40. It's already mainly clear and 9 degrees. Very different story up north. So Thompson mostly cloudy -5. You're going to be today at 1 degree. But it's what's coming that we have to warn you about. There is an orange level watch for a winter storm warning that does include the Paw, Wanless, Westray, Norway House, Island Lake, Oxford House. And this means that tonight through the next couple of days, you're going to be seeing snowfall. We're talking as much as freezing rain coming and then snow moving into the system. 30 to 50 centimeters could be expected. So it's going to be messy and wintry up north. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She has your headlines this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Peguis First Nation is putting the finishing touches on its flood defenses. The Interlake community has been sandbagging since last week as forecasts warn of the potential for very serious flood in the coming days. Doug Thomas, the Director of Communications for Peguis, says 115 of the homes considered most at risk have been protected so far. The Crown is appealing a ruling allowing a Winnipeg man convicted in a senior scam in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia to get out of prison, come back to Manitoba, and live with his grandparents. We're going to hear that story in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
We have one thing to pass along in traffic here. St. Anne's, about 200 meters north of Ward. Lights are in a red flashing situation, so use caution and travel through and treat that as a 4-way stop. So that's St. Anne's, about 200 meters north of Ward. Stay with us. Coming up at 7, as I mentioned, World Report. And then we're back with more local programming from here on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday morning. Clear sky in downtown Winnipeg, and as I mentioned, 9 degrees.
Today on The Current.
Kids are skipping school and absenteeism rates are on the rise across Canada. Ontario is trying to get kids back in the class by making attendance count toward their final grades in high school.
I'm the oldest child, so I skip school a lot, not because I want to, but it's because I have to.
We'll talk about which students this will help and what's at stake if we don't get kids back in the class, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. We begin in the Strait of Hormuz, where 3 ships have been seized by Iran's Revolutionary Guard.
نیروی دریایی سپاه پاسداران در راستای کنترل هوشمند تنگه هرمز
Iranian state media says the vessels were targeted for alleged maritime violations. There are renewed fears this could jeopardize the ceasefire U.S. President Donald Trump agreed to extend just last night. The CBC's Tom Perry is in Jerusalem for us. Tom, what do we know about the vessels that were attacked this morning?
Well, one of the vessels, a Greek-flagged ship, suffered damage to its bridge. A Panamanian vessel was hit in the hull. And a third ship that's also Panamanian flagged reported no damage. Now, the Revolutionary Guards say they've seized at least 2 of those ships, saying they were, quote, operating without the required authorization and for manipulating navigation systems. Now, this comes after a U.S. Navy destroyer opened fire on an Iranian cargo vessel this week and then took that ship into custody. When U.S. President Donald Trump announced yesterday he was extending his country's ceasefire with Iran, he said the U.S. naval blockade of Iran would continue. Iran's foreign minister has called that an act of war, a violation of the ceasefire agreement. And we did hear from Donald Trump today. He posted, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz open immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day, military and police complaining that they're not getting paid. SOS. So Trump giving no indication he plans to loosen the U.S. blockade, and Iran apparently not backing down either.
With that as a backdrop, Tom, let's talk about the status of the peace talks that were supposed to be taking place between the U.S. and Iran.
Well, at this point, there are no talks planned. Pakistan was preparing to host a second round of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran this week. U.S. President J.D. Vance was supposed to fly to Islamabad, but Iran said it would not attend as long as that U.S. naval blockade remained in place. So the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran has been extended, but this conflict has not been resolved, and tensions in the Strait of Hormuz are continuing to rise.
CBC's Tom Perry in Jerusalem for us. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
The former president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, won't be leaving The Hague anytime soon. He's being held there as the International Criminal Court investigates him for crimes against humanity. And this morning, judges rejected his appeal. Lauren Comato has more from Amsterdam.
The ailing 81-year-old former president wasn't in court to hear judges reject all four grounds of his appeal as to why they have no jurisdiction to hear his case. In a technical ruling, the 5 appeals judges found that even though the Philippines withdrew from the court in 2018, Duterte was already being investigated, and so its jurisdiction stands. Presiding Judge Luz del Carmen Ibanez Carranza.
There is a direct relationship between the prosecutor's announcement of the opening of preliminary examination and the decision of the Philippines to withdraw from the statute.
Duterte is charged with murdering thousands of people in his so-called war on drugs, allegedly committed while he was both mayor and president. Prosecutors say he created, funded, and armed death squads to kill alleged drug peddlers and users. But Duterte's defense lawyer, Nicholas Kaufman, has said his client denies all the charges.
He denies that there was a policy. He denies that there was a conspiracy.
Duterte remains popular in the Philippines, where his vice president daughter says she will run for president in 2028. She visited him in prison yesterday, saying he's in stable condition but sometimes feels lonely. For now, Duterte will remain behind bars as his case continues. This pending a decision by judges in the coming days over whether there is enough evidence to proceed to trial. Lauren Comato for CBC News, Amsterdam.
In Nova Scotia, people are questioning how much progress has been made on the recommendations of a fatality inquiry. It looked into the case of Lionel Desmond, a former Canadian soldier who killed his wife, mother, and daughter before turning the gun on himself. But as Kayla Hounsell tells us, a provincial website designed to track progress on those recommendations doesn't even mention 13 of them.
We are clear there is more work to do.
A legislative committee gathering to discuss the work that has been done since a fatality inquiry delivered its final report more than 2 years ago. It's been nearly a decade since Lionel Desmond killed his mother Brenda Desmond, his wife Shayna, and their 10-year-old daughter Aaliyah. He'd been medically released from the Canadian Armed Forces, suffering with PTSD after 2 tours in Afghanistan. A fatality inquiry called for improvements to how medical records are transferred from military to civilian healthcare providers and for stronger gun laws. Nova Scotia's progressive conservative government has launched a website so the public can track progress on the 25 recommendations, but 13 are not mentioned at all. Susie Hansen is the NDP's African Nova Scotian Affairs critic.
It's not good enough. I think communities have been waiting a long time for information on where we are.
Kim Stewart, who's leading the province's inquiry response, insists work is being done on all of the recommendations, but says the provincial government is taking a thematic approach to the larger issues, not ticking boxes recommendation by recommendation. When asked how the public could monitor the progress that way,
I guess through the updates that are provided there, it does provide the detail and the work that is being done.
The government is facilitating the transfer of electronic records, providing funding for gender-based violence groups, and taking steps to recruit more Black mental health providers. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
As Earth Day is being recognized around the world, environmental groups are celebrating a record growth in renewable energy sources. Solar and wind, now the cheapest forms of energy available. And as Nahayat Singh reports, armed conflicts and geopolitical issues are increasing the push for countries to supply their own power.
Workers assembled solar panels at a manufacturing plant in Gujarat, India. Last year, India recorded a 54% growth in clean, cheap solar power. China and other countries in the developing world saw similar double-digit growth in electricity generation from renewables. Good news for the climate, but also good news for countries facing an energy shock from the war in Iran and blocked oil shipments.
Fossil fuels are continuing to show that they are a systemic source of economic and financial instability.
Jessica Isaacs is with the World Resources Institute, a think tank based in Washington, D.C.
The choice to transition away from fossil fuels offers countries a real potential to increase their energy security.
Isaacs is talking about the soaring rise of solar and wind power. According to an annual report out this week from the energy research group Ember, these two sources met all the growth in global electricity demand last year, meaning fossil fuel-powered power generation did not grow. Nicholas Fulgham is a data analyst at Ember.
Solar is among the most scalable technologies that can deliver fast change.
As oil and gas prices continue to rise, experts say more countries will race to displace volatile fossil fuels with solar and wind energy. This Earth Day, it's a sign that the energy transition is happening, mostly for economic reasons, with the climate along for the ride. Inayat Singh, CBC News, Toronto.
British lawmakers are banning a generation from buying tobacco or vapes. The new rules prohibit anyone born on or after January 1st, 2009 from purchasing the products. King Charles is expected to sign off on the landmark legislation next week. Crystal Gamansing has more from London.
It is, in fact, the biggest public health intervention in a generation, and I can assure all noble lords it will save lives.
Gillian Joanna Meeran passionately praising a historic step forward. In the House of Lords, legislation passed banning the sale of tobacco and vapes for young people. The Labour government revived the bill originally pitched by Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Emily Cook with Asthma and Lung UK describes the changes as groundbreaking.
It should create a smoke-free generation, and a few decades down the line, hopefully way fewer people are going to be smoking.
Amendments were made over the past 2 years to ensure it would be workable across the UK, despite its ability to save lives and billions spent by the National Health Service to treat smoking-related health problems. There was still opposition. Michael Wolfgang Lawrence Morris is a Conservative Lord.
And that what we would really need is a proper understanding of how we educate people not to take up smoking.
Deepan Patel sells tobacco and vapes at Charlotte Street magazines in central London.
It's a good thing, but the children are...
Only the Maldives has a similar generation ban in place. Pioneering legislation in New Zealand was overturned. Since the idea originated with the Conservatives, it's unlikely the soon-to-be law will get scrapped, even if the government changes. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're listening to CBC in the Morning Show, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. It's Earth Day, and it's going to be beautiful in Winnipeg. It will be, though, snowy in parts of the north at the end of today and moving to the next couple of days. So as Heather's been framing it, we do have sort of a tale of two provinces in the weather system. This morning on the show, this hour on the show, speaking of Earth Day, we're going to have quite a conversation with environmentalists from two different generations. They both do their work here in Manitoba. One recalls protesting environmental disaster back in the 1970s. The other organized against a mining project in Manitoba just last summer. Today, where are there shared concerns between the two, and how do they think Manitoba's doing this Earth Day when it comes to climate targets? So we'll stay tuned. We'll talk about that. First, though, we'll have a conversation this half hour about what it takes to have a healthy democracy. This comes in light of recent threats made against a Manitoba MLA. So stay tuned for that. Let's go to Heather Welsh. She's here with other stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's Justice Department is hiring a team to collect unpaid fines instead of asking a collection agency. Right now, the province does get a private company to seek payment on fines like speeding tickets. The province says that agency earns an 18% commission, and Justice Minister Matt Weeb says that is too much. So we'll hear more coming up as well. The arm of Gimli is not happy about the development of a new Hutterite colony on its doorstep or a proposed wastewater lagoon attached to that project. So we'll hear about it coming up in our next news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Time to check in on this weather forecast. As we've been mentioning, there are some watches and warnings. But here across the South, Abby, this is going to be just a beautiful day with an unexpectedly, well, I guess, high. It's going to be warm.
Yeah, we're really looking out for really warm conditions across the southern regions. Most of the areas down south will touch near 23 degrees today, though we're starting in that single digit of temperatures. Most of the regions down south, except for the Dauphin area, that you're seeing temperatures close to zero at this time. Most of the regions already hovering around 8 degrees and 7 degrees. But when we talk about the bigger picture, the province really bracing for this major spring storm as we're tracking this heavy snow and freezing rain warnings covering the central parts of the province and even into the northern region, while the south will be enjoying those really lovely sunshine. We're talking about the north preparing for up to 50 centimeters of snow in some areas. And of course, you'll be noticing icy roads through Saturday in some areas. Hence that warning in place for regions around Flin Flon, Thompson, Gillam, Tuduli Lake. We're preparing for 30 to 50 centimeters of snow lasting all the way into Saturday with gust winds. Well, for Norway House, towards Island Lake, we're looking at a freezing rain coming your way, and there's a winter storm watch also there. About a significant amount of rain coming your way.
So tonight is when people have to start watching.
Start watching out for that. But for Winnipeg, we're already getting some sunshine. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds. We're around 8 degrees right now. We'll warm up to 22 later.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, yesterday we were asking people already what they were thinking about the warm weather, what they were planning on doing, because yesterday was about 17. Today, as Abby said, we might hit 22 here. People were saying time to hit the patio. Someone was going horseback riding. Chaz Van Dyck said, I think it's going to be shorts and sandals day. Other people writing in glass of wine on the deck. That's Teresa Wright Forsyth saying. People with pictures of their pets outside soaking in the sun. There's a dog named Nora enjoying some long-awaited balcony time. Someone sent us a photo. So people, Heather Witherden sending in, she's wearing her Crocs with little flowers sort of through. You know how you can put little design, adorn your Crocs or whatever. Mm-hmm. So she's got her fancy summer shoes on. And I love this. Kathy Hart saying putting clothes on the line. Right? Being able to dry stuff outside, it just gets that fresh breeze. I love that. The commute this morning, how's that going?
It's been really quiet so far. I haven't heard of any major issues. St. Anne's Road, the only issue, lights are flashing red right at St. Anne's in the intersection. That's about 200 meters just north of Ward, so just look out for that. Treat that as a four-way stop. But if you see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, 7:15 is the time right now, and yesterday it was reported that a 72-year-old man was arrested and charged in connection with sending racist and threatening letters to Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine. Now, following this, Fontaine spoke to reporters about some of the abuse that she's faced as a politician. And a note to our audience, we're about to play a part of what she said, but we have bleeped out 2 offensive words from this clip. So one is an offensive word toward women, one is an offensive word toward Indigenous women.
You know, if you were to chat with folks who are elected, something happened during COVID. If you ask, not only here in Manitoba, but across the country and U.S., I think their politics is a little bit different, but something happened during COVID where all of a sudden something like a light switch went off and people felt more emboldened to send things, to say things, to do things, to send you DMs. And I think that it's just gotten exponentially worse. And when I say to you that for myself, it is a daily, weekly occurrence. I mean that. I get DMs regularly, and let me just say this, it is 99.9% from men. I get DMs regularly calling me a C. I get DMs calling me a squaw. Like, it is just something that has just, in its level of intensity, has grown exponentially since COVID. And the second piece to that is that, you know, there are some elected officials that are more targeted. And I would submit that BIPOC MLAs are more targeted. So myself, Minister Smith, Minister Uzoma Asseguera, and the Premier. You know, I think that there's levels of you know, anti-Indigenous, anti-Black racism, misogyny that plays into this need for, again, predominantly men to come into our space and to level these attacks and real violence, I would submit to you.
So at this time of increased political polarization, many are looking for ways to foster a healthy democracy. Our next guest is one of them. Marianne Cirilli joins us by Zoom. She's a former NDP MLA. She's chair of the Association of Former Members of the Manitoba Legislative Assembly. So the association's hosting a launch event for their Healthy Democracy Initiative later today, and she's here to talk more about this. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Happy Earth Day.
Yeah, happy Earth Day. What are you thinking were you thinking, I saw you leaning in and really listening to what Minister Fontaine was saying there about the climate and about how people feel open to just attack and you know, send direct DMs with racist messages and stuff, that something shifted.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I was elected, there was no Facebook. And I think social media, digital tech, AI is all making things worse. I recently wrote an article about having digital tech impact assessments, and it's kind of stealing from what we've done on environmental impact assessments and health impact assessments and applying that to digital tech and looking at how it's affecting democracy, looking at how it's affecting social cohesion and just the civility and incivility that's going on in our world.
When you hear about the kinds of threats made against MLAs, how do you feel that it impacts the health of the democracy? Like, how does that line up?
I think it's turning people off. It's turning people off of politics and paying attention and getting involved. Certainly, it's affecting people's willingness to put their name forward and run and be involved at that, you know, a very important level of being a candidate. I hear that from people all the time, especially as Nahani said, women and people of color, people who are LGBTQ that are, you know, I think more open to running now. So I think that targeting has had a chill effect on politics and political engagement.
Your event this afternoon for discussion around this is called, as I mentioned, Healthy Democracy Initiative. What kind of conversations are you going to be having with attendees?
Yeah, we did a pre-event survey where we started asking people about the issues that they're concerned about what they see as the threats to our democracy and things that also are helping and strengthening. So we are going to be doing an exercise where we're mapping our democracy system of systems, I think we could call it. We're going to be looking at a whole range of moving parts that impact each other. And from that, we're going to be setting some priorities of what we see as the big issues that an all-party broad initiative in Manitoba could address. And we're going to be talking about some of the engagement activities that will really make it interesting for Manitobans and help them pay more attention. And in the end, we're also going to be mapping who the stakeholders are. So all the different players, everything from, you know, the legal profession, media, pollsters, various groups of voters, and elected officials themselves, both ones that are, you know, elected now and those of us that have the experience of being elected and are working at a real cross-party, nonpartisan way to try and apply what we've learned from our experience to help.
What do you think that are the greatest threats to democracy, to our democracy in Manitoba? Like we were started by talking about sort of people not wanting to run, and obviously that's a threat if you don't have people believing in the system and they don't want to put themselves forward because they don't want to be abused in the ways that MLAs are facing in some ways. But what else is threatening our democracy that worries you?
I think that what we were talking about earlier in terms of the impact of social media, the effect it's had on journalism, the effect it's had on political parties and how politicians and political parties are coping by it's kind of dumbed down politics, I think, and discourse where people are more just posting selfies and more hesitant to actually have substantive discussion on issues of policy. So I think the impact of social media has been really broad and the impact of other digital tech. So what's happening in political parties is really of interest in terms of how candidates are being selected. On the other hand, we just saw the convention for the NDP where Avi Lewis was elected, and it was one member, one vote, and it was very broad opening. So that involved, online voting. So there is potential there for it helping. I think the sense that people are very distracted. So a sign of a healthy democracy, which is one of the questions we asked people, is that people are engaged. And I think now people are living very busy lives, and the number of people that belong to political parties or that are, really following the news and following journalism and following issues is where they're getting their news, I think is also a big concern for our democracy.
When you talk about tone and how people treat each other and how politics has changed, we've been talking lots about decorum or lack thereof in the Manitoba legislature in recent weeks since the speaker came out and raised this as well, especially in these back and forth in recent months between the leaders, so Premier Wab Kinew and Opposition Leader Abi Khan. How does that impact how people engage with politics?
Yeah, again, I think it turns people off. I think people are shocked. Our all-party committee met with the educator that works at the legislature that welcomes students to come. And I think any students that come to the legislature, they're shocked when they see the level of animosity and the personal attacks that happen. And the big concern about that is, debate is healthy. Disagreeing and discussing issues is healthy. It's the personal attacks and the wedge politics that I think is the problem. And it's a problem because it means that people aren't discussing the substantive issues of policy and what the solutions are and how to look at research and evidence and organizing that's going on in different sectors of our community and economy to actually have politics be meaningful to address the challenges that we have. So it makes politics irrelevant, I think, for people is part of the problem.
Do you think it's changed that much? Because it's interesting, the Premier was here last week and he was saying that he's not certain, it was sort of what he said, that it's changed all that much. He said it's always been there's always been that animosity, wedge issues, and he was citing a time when former Premier Brian Pallister had an encounter with him and said something about now Premier Wab Kinew that was I'm just going to say was nasty to paraphrase that. But has it changed that much? I wonder from your time in the Ledge if this is so different.
Yeah, I went and watched Question Period on Budget Day, and I observed that exchange between the Leader of the Opposition and the Premier, some of those, very personal attacks. And I think one of the things that's changed, especially from talking with former MLAs from all parties, is the engagement of MLAs outside of the theater of Question Period and how much they're working together and how much things can be addressed through some of those meetings. I mean, I remember, bringing forward an issue for my constituency of assumed mortgages and very quickly being able to talk with ministers, and it was addressed. I brought in a private member's resolution, and the government made it a bill, and it was addressed. So I think that that kind of collaboration seems to not be happening as much. And I think it's like the animosity seems to be real. It seems to be that there isn't some basic trust between members of the different parties that they can actually have those kind of conversations and work together. And I've heard that from former MLAs. That's what they've said, is that they won't have those kind of conversations because they don't trust
the other side,
what will
so to
happen.
speak. Marianne Cerulli, thank you very much for your insight and for telling us about the launch of your initiative today.
Thank you. Yeah, 2:00 at the legislature. We're going to spend 6 hours talking about democracy. And I guess I just wanted to say too that
briefly, if we
without a
can.
healthy democracy, we can't address climate change.
Yes, important to say on Earth Day.
It's
Thank
an
you.
Earth Day issue too.
Yeah,
Thank
certainly.
you.
Thank you. Marianne Cerulli, former NDP MLA, chair of the Association of Former Members of the Manitoba Legislative Assembly. So their Healthy Democracy Initiative, 2:00 this afternoon. We are late getting to sports. I apologize. Let's talk hockey and the latest from the NHL playoffs with Scott Regehr. Hi.
Yeah, no problem. The Montreal Canadiens, Marcy, came so close to sweeping the first couple of games of their series in Tampa Bay, but close but no cigar in the end. The Lightning beat the Habs in overtime last night, a feisty affair in which Tampa forward Brandon Hagel managed a Gordie Howe hat trick. So that's when a player notches a goal, an assist, and a fight. Hagel's tussle, where he took on the less experienced pugilist Yuri Slafkovsky. A clear message, Marcy. Slafkovsky would not be allowed to score a hat-trick against Tampa Bay the way he did in Game 1, at least not without a fight. Montreal coach Martin Saint-Louis was asked about missing an opportunity to go up 2-0.
It would have been nice to get 2, if you would have told us before we came, you're going to get, you're going to split, we would have taken it. I felt like after 2 periods, I felt we were so close of getting 2, especially the way we were playing. It just kind of got away from us a little bit. It's a good team. And when you keep giving them the puck, you're just, rolling the dice a little bit.
So that series now tied. Will resume tomorrow, or I should say Friday, in Montreal. While Edmonton looks to go up 2-0 against Anaheim tonight. And if you're wondering, teams that gain such an advantage, 2-0, go on to win a series 87% of the time. So it's a good thing if you can do it.
It is also busy right now in Professional Women's Hockey League, too.
Yeah, busy and frustrating for the Toronto Scepters, Marcy. Had they beaten New York yesterday in regulation, the Scepters would have been in pole position to claim the last playoff spot. Instead, Toronto fell in overtime, which means if Ottawa wins its game today against Boston, it will be the Ottawa Charge claiming that final postseason berth instead. And so in a scenario that will feel counterintuitive to the average Toronto hockey fan, they'll be cheering for Boston tonight. Meanwhile, Vancouver, on the strength of a goal by Delorain's Ashton Bell, managed a big upset yesterday. The Golden Eyes taking down league leaders Montreal. The Victoire, desperate to win last night to secure first place in the standings, pulled their goalie with 7 minutes remaining and 3 down, and it almost worked. Montreal forward Haley Scamora scored a quick hat trick, and the Victoire fell short, but only by a goal. A lot of excitement in the league right now.
Let's finish with footy. 50 days to go till FIFA World Cup.
Yeah, 50 days, hard to believe, before Mexico, one of the co-hosts, will do that, entertain South Africa. That will be on June 11th. As for Canada, that's 51 days away, the start of their tournament. The Canadians hosting Bosnia and Herzegovina in Toronto. We'll be talking all about it, I'm sure, for the next, 50 days.
All right, Scott, thank you very much for today.
You bet.
That is our look at sports with Scott Regehr. Your news from Manitoba is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we are getting a taste of summer today in Winnipeg. A mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, a high of 22. Meanwhile, parts of central and northern Manitoba under a series of warnings this morning, from winter storm watch, freezing rain, and snowfall warning for parts of the north, anywhere from 30 to 50 centimeters starting overnight tonight. If your speeding ticket is overdue, the days of hearing from a collection agency may be numbered. Starting this winter, Manitoba's Justice Department wants the work of tracking overdue justice fines to be done in-house. Minister Matt Wiebe says it will be cheaper and more efficient than using a collection agency. Right now, collection agencies collect an 18% commission. Wiebe says an internal fine collection unit will have leverage from the government.
Not only will we have the resources and the tools to pressure people to pay and sort of going after them and pick up the phone and we want you to pay your fine, but when somebody goes to renew their license, maybe they can't renew it until they pay their fine.
Wiebe believes withholding government services could entice people to pay up quickly. Some neighbors are raising a stink over a wastewater lagoon attached to a new Hutterite colony on their doorstep. That lagoon is part of a development by the Crystal Springs colony in the RM of Armstrong. The RM of Gimli has opposed the project, saying it will create negative consequences downstream. Fred Veldnick has lived in Silver Harbor for more than 3 decades. He says he's seen enough green algae blooms to know Lake Winnipeg has reached its limit.
Lake Winnipeg is not able to regenerate itself or to heal itself. So the only way we can help the lake become healthy again is by preventing any more effluent, any more nutrients from coming into the lake.
The project's backers say discharge from the lagoon would happen outside of fish spawning periods once or twice a year. Manitoba's Clean Environment Commission is holding hearings on the lagoon this week. Peguis First Nation is putting the finishing touches on its flood defenses. The Interlake community has been sandbagging since last week as forecasts warn of the potential for a very serious flood in the coming days. Doug Thomas is Peguis's Director of Communications. He says 115 of the homes considered most at risk have been protected so far, thanks to a great response by the community, the province, the federal government, and scores of volunteers.
It's bittersweet because we've never been so prepared, and we've done an amazing job. The team's done an amazing job at coming together. But we want to see a long-term solution. It's a shame that we have to keep doing this every year.
Peguis leadership has long lobbied for permanent protection after being devastated by a series of floods over the years. The Crown is appealing a ruling allowing a Winnipeg man convicted in a senior scam in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia to get out of prison. 25-year-old Charles Gillen pleaded guilty last year to fraud and theft. Last month, a judge sent him home to Manitoba to serve a conditional sentence living with his grandparents. CBC's Ryan Cook reports.
Charles Gillen acted as a courier for an organized crime syndicate sent to collect $139,000 from more than a dozen seniors in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. He was caught, pleaded guilty, and was given a 4-year sentence late last month by Newfoundland and Labrador Chief Justice Raymond Whalen. But Whalen also gave Gillen more than 2 years credit for time he spent in pretrial custody and on bail. That left him with just shy of 2 years left to serve. Whalen said Gillen was eligible to serve it as a conditional sentence, otherwise known as house arrest. CBC News has spoken with 2 law professors and 1 Crown prosecutor who all say that decision was wrong, that the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled conditional sentences are only eligible for sentences less than 2 years in total and not 2 years after credits are subtracted from a longer sentence. The Crown is now seeking to overturn the decision, filing documents with the province's appeals court stating the sentence should be set aside and Gillen should be returned to prison. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
The British military says 3 ships have been attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran opened fire on at least 1 cargo ship it says ignored warnings to stop. All this after U.S. President Trump extended the ceasefire with Iran hours before it was due to expire yesterday. You can hear the latest on this story and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Looking for a job? It might be worth the trip to Steinbach. That city has a number of businesses looking to fill empty positions. Tessa Massey at the Steinbach Chamber of Commerce says more than 100 jobs are posted in Steinbach.
A lot of different businesses that are looking to hire in a lot of different industries, manufacturing, healthcare, retail, a lot of positions that are open, and not just entry-level positions. They're looking for a bunch of different levels.
A career fair this week aimed to connect job seekers with businesses looking to hire. Massey says many people in Steinbach want to work in the city where they live without having to commute to Winnipeg. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into our regional forecast now. And Abby's going to let us know what's going on.
Yeah, we are a province of staggering contrast today, Marcy, as we're looking at this spring warmth in the southern parts clashing with those winter storm mounting in the northern parts of the province. We have this spring storm arriving tonight, and the alerts are widespread. We're talking about snowfall warning in effect for northern Manitoba, impacting Flin Flon, Thompson, Tudula Lake, and nearby regions, where a massive 30 to 50 centimeters of snow is expected tonight through Saturday. And then it will look towards the central part from the Par, Norway House, and nearby. Freezing rain warnings in effect. And of course, there's a winter storm watch also starting tonight with a significant arrival of more like freezing rain coming your way across the north. We will see wind gusts up to 70 km, and this might create near zero visibility once the system starts to pour down by tomorrow morning. So be prepared for that. But Winnipeg, we enjoy a taste of summer. Currently sitting at 8 degrees, sunny skies outside. We're going to be soaring to a high of 22 today, well above seasonal. And of course, expect some gusty south east winds. All day remains pleasant, and that's the similar conditions across the southern parts of the province. However, keep an eye out on the sky tonight, because there's a risk of thunderstorms and showers building up in the overnight period. So be prepared for that.
Okay, Abby, thank you.
You're welcome.
Time for the morning commute update with Corey Funk.
Yes, so there's those lights were flashing red St. Anne's there. That is now clear. Should be smooth sailing through there. Though Megan Ketchison just came in. She was in South Osborne area. She said it's dusty, so bad, in fact, that it's actually affecting visibility in the area, South Osborne area. So look out for that. Other than that, pretty quiet commute. If you do see something, though, if you're walking your bike and you're driving, you can give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
Corey Funk, can you laugh on command?
Maybe, you know, give me like 3 hours. I'd probably have a bit more enthusiasm, but this early in the morning?
Okay, if you fake laugh, does it turn into a real laugh?
That actually sounded pretty realistic.
Kind of, and not at the beginning though, right?
Yeah, I've never been a good force. Yeah, exactly. I can do like the silly laugh, but I can't do a good feel one.
So why are we asking? Because this is my dream. My dream is to have a listener line full of laughter. But just in case you can't laugh, this is leading somewhere, listeners, I promise. Corey Funk, can you tell a joke on command?
Yeah, I can actually. This is a Corey Funk original.
Okay, I can't do that actually. I'd rather do the laughing, but you.
Okay, so what did...
Look how proud he is. He's so excited to tell this. I better laugh.
Yeah, okay. What did the yoga instructor say to the moose when the moose left their class early?
Okay, what?
Nah, moose, stay.
Oh.
Yeah, see what I did there? I'm pretty proud of that one.
It was good. It was good. And if you were watching, on YouTube, you got extra points because Corey actually bowed when he said,
Yes.
"Moose stay." We have tickets, 2 pairs of tickets to a comedy festival mega show. So the Comedy Fest is on right now. Friday night mega show. It's called New to Town, and we are going to give these tickets away. So we've already told you how you can win. You have 2 ways that you can win. You can tell a joke, "Namu stay," or you can laugh. Maybe you're good at laughing on command. I think it'd be super fun to hear people's laughter. Or maybe you want to tell us a story of somebody in your family who's got a very unique laugh. Everybody has someone like that where they can clear a room. Are they a giggler? Are they a big guffaw? Do they have an evil laugh? So 2 ways to win these tickets. You have until, you have to enter today and tomorrow. We're going to pick the winner tomorrow at 8:20. So the contest closes tomorrow at 8:20 a.m. This is for 2 pairs of tickets, 4 in total, to New in Town, the Comedy Fest Mega Show on Friday night. So you can call the listener line and laugh or tell a joke, 788-3205, 788-3205, or you can comment on YouTube. That's why I mentioned if you're watching on YouTube and you saw Corey there. So you can comment in the comment section on YouTube. If you watch Infrared Stream live while you're listening, maybe, then we'll also take entries there. So leave us a joke there if you're on YouTube. And we will announce the winner coming up. Very fun. It's 20 to 8 right now on 89.3 FM. It is Earth Day. It is April 22nd. Still ahead, we're going to hear from 2 generations. Two people, 2 generations represented, both Manitobans, who've been fighting for a better environment in this province for decades. So we're going to hear more about their work and what motivates them, and also where they have shared concerns across the generations that we can't quite get past here in our province. Next, though, it is time for our medical column. And this health problem that we're going to talk about might seem counterintuitive because today's column's about a medical condition that can be triggered by intense workouts. Now, it's often seen at this time of year because people are rushing to get into shape after hibernating in the winter. Here's Dr. Raj Bardwaj to tell us all about it and how to avoid it.
Good morning, Marcy.
So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, it's called rhabdomyolysis, which is a fancy medical term that means breakdown of skeletal muscle. So we use that term, when muscles break down, they spill their insides into the bloodstream. And muscles have a molecule in them called myoglobin. It's actually related to hemoglobin. And normally myoglobin lives happily inside the muscle cell, but if a bunch of it gets spilled into your bloodstream, it can literally clog up the filtration system of your kidneys. They start to malfunction and you end up with all sorts of problems, including profound weakness and abnormal heart rhythms. And it can happen for a bunch of reasons, but one classic case I saw a few years ago, a guy who was in a CrossFit exercise competition. And so he did way more exercise than he was used to because of the competition. And after a couple of days, he literally couldn't walk. He had to call EMS to get him off the couch and bring him to the emergency department. He actually ended up in the ICU on kidney dialysis because of the damage from the rhabdomyolysis that happened in his body.
Wow. How common is this?
So the good news is it's not super common. There are stats in the U.S. that say about 40,000 people in the U.S. were seen in the emergency department for rhabdo in a 20-year period from the year 2000 to 2019. Closer to home, the stats say about 4 to 8 cases per 100,000 people per year. So, in a city of 1 million people, that's 40 to 80 cases per year. So we would see one, every few days, once a week, something like that.
In terms of, you mentioned exercising, is it mainly over-exercising that causes this then?
So anything that damages large amounts of muscle can trigger that myoglobin to be spilled into the blood. So the classic med school textbook case is a muscle crush injury. So imagine somebody gets, pinned under debris after an earthquake or gets pinned between two vehicles in a car accident or something like that. But we also see it in people who fall and can't get up. So sometimes imagine, elderly person walking on the sidewalk in the wintertime, they slip, they fall, they break their hip, and then they can't get up. And so they're lying on the cold ground for hours until they're found and lifted up off those muscles. And the muscles can start to break down, especially if they also get hypothermia, because hypothermia can damage muscles directly. So can heat stroke. So can, really high fever. So anything that damages muscles and causes them to, the little muscle cells to break and spill their contents into the blood. But over-exercising is definitely something that can do it in healthy people. I saw another case that it was a person in an exercise class, one of those sort of, springtime beach body type classes. And that one, it was a bunch of people ran into trouble because the way that the class worked is the whole group had to keep exercising if the slowest or weakest person couldn't hit a target. And so a bunch of them actually got overworked.
How would a person know that they have this?
Yeah, so the three classic things that go together are muscle pain, muscle weakness, and really dark urine. And I'm not talking dark yellow, like this is tea-colored or Coke-colored urine. Sometimes people call it maple syrup colored urine. So the muscle pain and weakness usually start anywhere from 1 to 4 days after the intense exercise or the crush injury or the high fever or whatever. And the dark urine is a clue. It's a sign that myoglobin is leaking out through the kidneys. Now, the problem is that about half of the people with rhabdo don't get all three classic symptoms, but they might have other symptoms. They might feel incredibly exhausted to the point where they can't get up out of bed or off the couch. They might have nausea and vomiting. They might have a fever. In severe cases, because of the kidney malfunction, they can get electrolyte abnormalities in their blood. They can get heart palpitations. They can even have cardiac arrest. So if we suspect rhabdo, we do a urine test looking for the myoglobin, and we do a blood test called the CK. Normal CK levels are between 30 and 200. People with rhabdo have very high levels. I've seen levels in the hundreds of thousands.
Wow.
Which that's a medical emergency.
How's it actually treated?
So the main thing that we need to do is protect the kidneys, and we can protect them by diluting the amount of myoglobin that's in the blood, or we can remove the myoglobin from the blood without making the kidneys do it. So intravenous fluid to help dilute out the myoglobin and other debris that's spilling into the bloodstream, and kidney dialysis. So we basically use a machine to do the job of the kidneys, so the kidneys don't have to do it. And it's a big deal. I mean, people think, well, it's I'm just sore after a workout. I mean, no. I mean, if you have true rhabdomyolysis, the death rate can be up to 10%. Now, that's usually, higher risk in people who are already frail. If you've got rhabdo in a healthy person who exercised way too hard, that's not as dangerous as somebody who's, for example, that elderly person who slips and falls and lays on the cold sidewalk for hours or days before they're found.
All right, Dr. Bardwaj, thank you.
My pleasure.
That's Dr. Raj Bardwaj in our medical column here on CBC.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6, 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
Well, we couldn't have asked for a better Earth Day, Manitoba, at least not in southern Manitoba. There is some wintry weather coming north that's going to start tonight and over the next few days bring rain, bring snow, freezing rain, snow. We're looking for actually thunderstorms tonight, possibly in Winnipeg. But I'll tell you what, across the south today, our high is 22 degrees, lots of sunshine, so that's going to hold. And earlier this morning, we were hearing about all the events for Earth Day happening at the Forks. So if you're planning on heading out there, things start at 10 o'clock, and there should be just gorgeous weather for you here in Winnipeg, at least all day long. Well, speaking of Earth Day, how are we doing when it comes to protecting the land? The job seems to never end. And at a time when war and trade relationships and shifting global priorities have topped the agenda, some people are sounding the alarm that the environment is taking a back seat. And it's been 10 years since the Paris Climate Accord came out. And we're not doing very well on that front either. Of all the G7 countries, Canada is 7 of 7 in terms of reaching those targets that were set 10 years ago. If you missed that interview, we also talked about that in the last hour of the program. But my next two guests are going to bring it back here to Manitoba because they spend much of their lives speaking up and speaking out about the earth. Katharina Steifenhofer is now 71 years old, but she first remembers carrying a banner in the 1970s at the site of an environmental disaster, and it's informed a lot of her life. She's a Manitoba filmmaker as well. Her latest documentary about the land here is called Everything We Need Is Here, and she's in studio. Good morning.
Good morning and happy Earth Day.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Also with us this morning from Broken Head on Zoom with us, a water protector from another generation. Taylor Galvin is a millennial from Broken Head Ojibwe First Nation who helped organize last summer against a mining project there. She's studying environmental sciences, just about to wrap that up at the University of Manitoba. Thanks for being with us, Taylor. We'll just get your audio on there. I think you're muted.
Good morning. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Taylor. How are you doing?
During our interview, it's interesting, too, because Katharina brought some photos in, so we'll put those up whenever we get them in our system, too. They're photos, actually, Taylor, of you at the mining last year, standing up against the CO Silica mining project. You had environmental concerns about Broken Head. What motivates you, Taylor, to do your work for the environment?
For me, what motivates me the most is the generations that are coming after me, 100%, right? I think that at this stage in my life and many others, it's our responsibility and our role within community and outside of community to ensure that, the next generations that follow us have clean water, they have, clean land to be able to grow their own food, they have a comfortable lifestyle and a good outlook on well-being and health as well.
Mm-hmm. Katharina, when you think about today, and I mean the work that Taylor and others are doing for future generations, and you've been doing this since like the 70s, is it heartening to see or is it disheartening that still, the progress seems slow?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. No, it's, I'm with David Suzuki and his frustration and anger. When I think about Earth Day, Earth Day was founded in 1970 in the United States, and there were huge protest marches that then led to the founding of the environmental protection legislation, and it seems like we're going backwards. And we're not making any progress. Things are getting worse. At that time, the climate crisis was not as much on the horizon. And now we're, it's right in front of us, and we're all being affected by extreme weather. So I'm thinking about the here and now. Now, of course, there's the future generations. I have children, but it's the here and now that I'm thinking about. And when we look at something like the LeMay Forest that nearly got clear-cut and just saved in the last minute.
Here in Winnipeg, yeah.
Here in Winnipeg. And, it's about the here and now. And
how are you feeling, Taylor, about the here and now in terms of Manitoba? When you think about how we're doing with being good to the earth, what worries you, and where do you see maybe gains being made that are positive?
I mean, I think that, we're a far way away from, what needs to be done in terms of protective statuses around whether it's ecosystems or even just species in general. Like you mentioned earlier, Canada's number 7 of 7 on that list, in Manitoba, I'm sure would kind of, be at the same kind of level as that if you created a list around here. But that being said, there are still certain aspects of of the environment that are kind of doing quite well, right? Like there was the recent announcement around the Seal River watershed and more, funding dollars going towards, IPCAs or Indigenous protected and conserved areas, which is a really good way forward. I know of other nations who are working towards establishing their own IPCAs as well. But it's still there's still so much work that needs to be done, and there's still more partnerships that need to be had. And I think, there's a lot of the, environmental harms and environmental racism that goes on in Manitoba is all around, First Nation communities. And so I think that's a big aspect that really needs to be worked on at the same time. But, in relation to the day-to-day, I try not to get too wrapped up about it all the time, or else I would never probably leave my house. But it can be very hard and very frustrating to watch our leaders, both Indigenous and even our own First Nation leaders, making terrible decisions when it comes to land and water protection.
And Katerina, when you and I were talking about, you coming on the show, and I asked you sort of what is the most frustrating from a Manitoba point of view, you said it's so slow to make progress.
Well, it is so slow. And it's, for example, in 2014, we had a cosmetic pesticide ban that was instated by the NDP government of the day. Mm-hmm. When in October 23, the current NDP government came back into power, we expected it to be a shoo-in to have that cosmetic pesticide ban reinstated. Now it's 3 years later. We're still writing letters and saying, when is this happening? When are you going to reinstate the cosmetic pesticide ban? So that's the slowness. And, on a municipal level, City of Winnipeg, we're trying to encourage them strongly to have a tree protection bylaw that protects mature, healthy trees on private and public lands. Again, that's being stalled. It's already in place in other major cities and other municipalities.
But not here.
So it's our leadership that needs to step up to the plate and be real leaders into the future environmentally.
Taylor, you really do walk the walk with decisions that you make. Is it right that you recently turned down a speaking engagement because of something regarding the physical printed program?
How did you know about that?
Research.
I did, actually. Yeah. A couple of days ago. I was invited to speak at a national gathering, and they had sent me the event poster, and you can just tell that it was 100% generated by AI. And for anybody out there who's not fully aware or doesn't know the full complexities of the environmental harms, especially towards the water, that AI data centers pose to that relative of ours. I declined the invite, or I actually did state to them, I was like, I'll come and present at your gathering if you let me redesign your poster to not be AI generated, because I can't advocate for the water and I can't advocate against AI and then go and participate in something such as your event that is being promoted by AI. And I never heard back from them, and I'm still waiting. So,
what do you think? Just as a last question, Taylor, what do you think that if we could do one thing in Manitoba that would improve our status, or would improve your outlook on how green we are, so to speak? What would you hope would change here?
More land guardians programs, 100%. I think that would be really great, because it also bridges a gap between generations, and it also opens the doors to a lot of really great partnerships. I believe that Indigenous-led conservation is 100% the future. And today on Earth Day, which is what I was talking about earlier before I came on here, is a day that we would like to celebrate, the people who have been protecting these lands for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I think it's time to make changes, because we've walked down this same path of what they term conservation for decades and decades, even close to a century, and look where it's taken us. And so I think it's time to make and look at different and innovative ways, and allowing other people and other voices to start taking the lead on these projects.
And Katerina, just as a final question to you, where can people see your documentary, Everything We Need Is Here, which is all about Manitoba, and everything we need is on the land?
And Everything We Need Is Here is also dedicated to all the land protectors all across the earth, and in particular to Camp Morningstar up in Hollow Water, and to the Coalition to Save LeMay Forest. And they can see it on Bell 5 TV1 if they subscribe to that.
Yeah. Thank you both for being here, just to touch some of these this conversation today. Nice to have you on, Taylor. Thank you from Broken Head.
You bet. Thank you.
And thanks so much for being in studio, Katerina.
Okay, thank you.
That's Katerina Steifenhofer, the environmentalist and Manitoba filmmaker. The latest documentary, Everything We Need Is Here. Taylor Galvin, a water protector from Broken Head, Ojibwe First Nation. It's Earth Day. Events begin at the Forks at 10. Still ahead after 8 o'clock on the program, we're going to have an interesting conversation. Small town newspapers have been shuttering all across Canada. Is the answer to keep local news alive AI? A local tech company believes it could be. We're going to hear from the co-founder of something called Boring News. Right now, Heather Wells is in with headlines.
Manitoba's Justice Department is hiring a team to collect unpaid fines instead of asking a collection agency. Right now, the province gets a private company to seek payment on overdue fines like speeding tickets. The province says that agency earns an 18% commission, and Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says that's too much. Some neighbors are raising a stink over a wastewater lagoon attached to a new Hutterite colony on their doorstep. The lagoon, part of a development by the Crystal Springs colony in the arm of Armstrong. We'll hear more at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather. World Report's coming up next right here on 89.3.
On cue.
You're hungover and you got home at 3 o'clock in the morning. Where were you?
When she was first cast in the Oscar-winning movie One Battle After Another, the actor Chase Infinity had almost 0 credits to her name. She'll be here to tell you how a K-pop dance video led to that role, and meeting Margaret Atwood while making her new show, The Testaments. Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Kids are skipping school, and absenteeism rates are on the rise across Canada. Ontario is trying to get kids back into class by making attendance count toward their final grades in high school. We'll talk about which students this will help and what's at stake if we don't get kids back in the class, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. We begin in the Strait of Hormuz, where Iran's Revolutionary Guard has fired on 3 cargo ships.
نیروی دریایی سپاه پاسداران در راستای کنترل هوشمند تنگه هرمز امروز صبح
Iranian state media say the vessels were targeted for alleged maritime violations. There are renewed fears this could jeopardize the ceasefire U.S. President Donald Trump agreed to extend just last night. The CBC's Tom Perry is in Jerusalem for us. Tom, what do we know about the vessels that were attacked this morning?
Well, one of the vessels, a Greek-flagged ship, suffered damage to its bridge. A Panamanian vessel was hit in the hull. And a third ship that's also Panamanian flagged reported no damage. Now, the Revolutionary Guards say they've seized at least two of those ships, saying they were, quote, operating without the required authorization and for manipulating navigation systems. Now, this comes after a U.S. Navy destroyer opened fire on an Iranian cargo vessel this week and then took that ship into custody. When U.S. President Donald Trump announced yesterday he was extending his country's ceasefire with Iran, he said the U.S. naval blockade of Iran would continue. Iran's foreign minister has called that an act of war, a violation of the ceasefire agreement. And we did hear from Donald Trump today. He posted, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz open immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day, military and police complaining that they're not getting paid. SOS. So Trump giving no indication he plans to loosen the U.S. blockade, and Iran apparently not backing down either.
With that as a backdrop, Tom, let's talk about the status of the peace talks that were supposed to be taking place between the U.S. and Iran.
Well, at this point, there are no talks planned. Pakistan was preparing to host a second round of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran this week. J.D. Vance was supposed to fly to Islamabad, but Iran said it would not attend as long as that U.S. naval blockade remained in place. So the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran has been extended, but this conflict has not been resolved, and tensions in the Strait of Hormuz are continuing to rise.
CBC's Tom Perry in Jerusalem for us. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
The International Criminal Court is this morning rejecting an appeal by former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte. He's facing charges for crimes against humanity and challenging the court's jurisdiction, arguing the tribunal has no legal authority to hear the case. Here is some of the court's decision.
Having rejected the entire appeal, the appeals chamber considers that the defense request for the immediate and unconditional release of Mr. Duterte is moot.
The 81-year-old Duterte is being held at The Hague as the ICC investigates his violent anti-drug campaign, which ran from 2011 to 2019. Human rights groups claim state police and vigilantes murdered unarmed drug suspects on a massive scale. Philippine authorities deny the allegations. The Washington Post says a report on the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccine is being blocked from publication. Sources say the report found the vaccine reduced emergency department visits and hospitalizations for healthy adults by nearly half this past winter. But the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will not be publishing those details in its scientific journal. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is in charge of the CDC, has been critical of vaccines. A spokesperson for his department says there were concerns about the report's methodology. Now that Mark Carney's Liberals have a majority government, they are moving to take control of House of Commons committees. House Leader Stephen McKinnon says his party will seek to change the standing order to ensure Liberals get a majority vote. For more, let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, why is the government doing this?
John, all bills go through committee. So if you have a majority of votes, you can speed up that process. And committees in recent minority parliaments have also spent a lot of their time and energy on inquiries, probing priority issues of their choosing. When you've got the majority of the voices on a committee, you can steer those too. The makeup of House committees is not standard. It's set at the start of each new parliament. And the rules say that each party's representation should reflect the seat count of recognized parties. Now, somewhat extraordinarily, of course, when you're in now, we've had a significant change from a minority to a majority government. And while it's somewhat unprecedented to revisit the committee lists midway, Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon said last night that his motion reflects the principle that a majority in the House means a majority on committee.
And so, Janice, the opposition not happy about this.
No, Conservatives have already sent out a fundraising email saying Liberals are out to stack the deck to shut down investigations into scandals, conflict and waste, arguing this is a manufactured majority as a result of recent floor crossings. So Liberals should have to stick with the committees that reflected last year's general election, not what's unfolded since. But once the Liberals' new MPs take up their seats, this motion's going to pass. And the biggest loser in all this may be the Bloc Québécois. Up till now, it's held the swing vote on committees. It could broker deals to side with the government to get what it wanted or oppose it alongside Conservatives. All committees are still going to have a Bloc MP, but that vote will no longer call the shots.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford is still feeling the headwinds over his decision to purchase a private jet. Ford quickly reversed course following public backlash and says the province is going to sell the nearly $29 million jet. But as the CBC's Sarah McMillan reports, there are now questions about how the aircraft could have even been used.
I've gone east, west, north, south.
And doing all that travel isn't easy, says Ontario Premier Doug Ford, defending his government's now cancelled plans for a private jet. The Challenger 650 could take him throughout Canada to the U.S., even non-stop to the United Kingdom. Ford says it would also have helped him get to remote communities within Ontario. He was asked where in the province it would not be able to land.
Just up in the far, far north where there's dirt runways.
In fact, the plane likely can't use most Ontario airports. Bombardier's technical specifications lay out minimum takeoff and landing distances. Ontario has 179 federally recognized operational airports. As of 2021, only 19 have runways that are long enough, though aviation experts say some shorter runways could be suitable if the plane is not fully loaded. The province already has planes that can access much shorter runways, including a 6-passenger jet purchased by the Ontario Provincial Police late last year. Stefan Watkins is a research consultant who specializes in flight tracking.
Why the OPP would come to a different conclusion and pick a completely different plane that seems more suitable to Ontario runways than the Premier would choose for doing travel allegedly within the province as well as internationally, I didn't understand.
Our analysis shows the OPP plane will be able to take off from at least 117 airports. We presented our findings to the Premier's office. They didn't comment on them directly. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
And on that story, on our website, we asked each premier across the country how they fly when traveling for provincial business. You can read their responses at cbcnews.ca. A Nunavut man who spent 3 days lost in a blizzard says his family's teachings helped him to survive. Peter Kajavak Jr. was part of a team of 5 traveling by snowmobile to a volleyball tournament. But he was separated from the group and found himself alone with no supplies. The CBC's Samuel Watt has his story.
I'm doing really good.
For someone who was stranded in a blizzard for 3 days, it's a blessing Peter Kaitunak Jr. is alive and without even a single sign of frostbite.
I had no shelter, but I would use my back to cover the wind.
He was part of a group of 5 in Nunavut heading from Talojuak to Johaven for a volleyball tournament 2 weeks ago. There was a blizzard and they tried to beat it.
I told them to go ahead and I was going to follow them and make sure they're good from behind. As soon as they left, my skidoo got stuck.
He ended up alone, no food, no shelter for 3 days. He tried to look for Johaven's lights to guide him without knowing the town's power was out. But he kept going, taking short naps and moving as much as possible.
I was mainly thinking of my family and my friends.
Friends like Adrian Carew. He and the team arrived to Johaven and sought help.
It is terrifying, but a good experience to lead. To keep moving forward.
A Hercules plane was sent from Winnipeg. After spotting Kaitunak, researchers dropped a radio to communicate with him. But another blizzard meant he wasn't picked up for another few hours.
And they almost didn't find me.
When he arrived, Kaitunak still carried on as planned with the volleyball tournament. And they ended the harrowing journey on top by taking home the gold. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Johaven, Nunavut.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. How you doing this morning? Thanks for spending your time with us on Wednesday, Earth Day, April 22nd, on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Well, this half hour on the program, how would you feel if the news that you read every morning was mostly accurate? We're going to hear from the co-founder of Boring News. That's the name of an AI-assisted news site that openly admits it might get a few facts wrong, but they're still publishing, and we're going to hear more about the work that they're doing. It is rooted here in Winnipeg, so we'll learn more about that this half hour. Also, this half hour on the show, Abby's going to update us on what's going on with the weather. Beautiful down south here, but in the northern part of our province, we are expecting quite a lot of snow that's going to be coming over the next couple of days. So Abby with that forecast in a few minutes. Stay with us. 8:10 a.m. the time. All right, first let's go to our news center. Heather Wells has headlines on a number of stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Peguis First Nation putting the finishing touches on its flood defenses. That interlake community has been sandbagging since last week, with forecasts warning of potential for a very serious flood in the coming days. Doug Thomas, the Director of Communications for Peguis, says 115 of the homes considered most at risk have been protected, thanks to great response, he says, by the community and various volunteers and the federal government. So we'll hear more about that as well. The Crown is appealing a ruling allowing a Winnipeg man convicted in a senior scam in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia to get out of prison on conditional sentence that he live with his grandparents in Manitoba. That story coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Abby, you always like these little things when listeners write to us, right, about what they're spotting out there.
Yep.
We have time for me to read a little one here?
Please do.
Yeah, okay. So this came from one of our listeners. She said, "Hi, Marcy, I love listening to information radio in the morning." And then she wanted to shout someone out. She said, "There's this wonderful human set up on the boulevard in the mornings every day, right at the lights where Pembina is northbound at Stafford. So just across from the No Frills there, if you can picture that in Winnipeg. He's got a cardboard sign. It says simply share a smile. He walks down the boulevard, he waves, he smiles, he gives thumbs up to everyone when they pass by. It's the highlight of my morning commute. I never get a chance to talk with him more than just a quick good morning, but I want for him to know what joy he brings to commuters." So I thought I would share that because maybe you're actually there right now. Maybe you're looking out the window of your bus and you're thinking, yeah, he brings me joy too. And at some point we got to go out there and meet him. I think there's a lot of those folks in our daily lives, right, that you pass by that bring us that joy. I saw that guy yesterday that dresses up like it's 1910 and rides his bike all sitting upright.
Oh yeah, I've seen him in the village a few times. Yeah,
so he brings me a lot of
makes
joy.
you feel like you're back in time for like a hot
totally.
minute. I love it.
Okay, Abby, today, if you're riding a bike down south, you're fine. If you're in the north, not time yet.
Well, Marcy, the province is facing this massive weather divide today as the southern regions will be seeing sunshine while there's a contrast of a powerful spring storm bringing snowfall and freezing rain towards the central and northern parts of the province. Hence the warnings we have impacting communities from Flin Flon all the way towards Thompson and even as far as Tudor Lake this morning, preparing for up to 50 centimeters of snow starting sometime this evening, and this would last into Saturday with wind gusts reaching 70 kilometers per hour, which will be blowing the snow around. So poor visibility also in the forecast, making travel difficult for folks in that region. And then in the south central parts, we're talking about from the Par towards Norway House and all the way to Island Lake, where we're anticipating this freezing rain coming. We're looking at ice build up starting tonight, also making roads and sidewalks really sleek and dangerous. So be prepared for that. But down south, we're starting with some sunshine. 10 degrees at the Forks right now. Just some breezy conditions from the southeast. We're heading to a high of 22 today, and that's what most of the regions will see in the southern part. For now, we're looking at between 4s and 11 around Steinbach, but most regions will get close to 23 degrees today.
Hit the patio, right? So we're all thinking, okay, Corey, what's up in the commute?
Quiet commute overall. Apparently dust is an issue in terms of visibility, at least South Osborne area, says Megan Ketchum when she came into the newsroom this morning. Also, just a reminder, Jason Carter phone, just to remind people that you can register for free, 529 Garage for your bike if you're just pulling it out this season. You register your serial number, and if it does get stolen, hopefully it doesn't, it makes it way easier easier to find, and it is free, and it's open up. And today apparently is registration day, just to people are reminding people to register for that as you pull your bikes out of your garages or wherever else this time of year. If you see anything else, you can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, up first, since 2008, over 600 news outlets have closed across Canada. According to News Media Canada, community newspapers make up a majority of those closures, as you likely know if you've been following that. But a Winnipeg-based tech company believes they found a way to keep these communities connected, with a lot of help from artificial intelligence. Boring News is an AI-powered news site. It covers 100 Canadian communities. It includes over 20 Manitoba towns, cities, municipalities, and First Nations. So you can read about Carberry, Garden Hill, Niverville, Peguis, Stanley, The Paw, and more. But AI doesn't always get the facts straight. And humans behind the project say that's okay. Emma Kelly is co-founder of Upbeat Media. That's the Winnipeg tech company behind Boring News. And Emma's in studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Lovely to meet you on this beautiful spring morning.
Right? It's gorgeous outside.
It is so nice.
What motivated you to create Boring News? Tell us a bit about it.
Well, actually, I'm a new Canadian citizen. I became a Canadian citizen last year, and I've been here for 10 years. And over that time, we've seen so many small local news outlets just close with very little to replace that. So we want to use technology to help people's lives be better and to make life easier for them. And we created the Boring News to fill in that gap because we believe every local community has the right to news.
And so how does it actually work in terms of if I see a piece of news on the site, where did it come from? Who wrote it?
Well, everything on the site is created from facts. So we source everything from all the news sources available. So you're talking about local government, local businesses, local communities. That's all information that's available out there, but it may be hard for the everyday person to find.
So it could be like a press release, it could be a comment that's been made somewhere in a public space.
It could be a 16-page PDF that the government has released, which not everyone's going to read.
Okay.
So all that information is out there. We put it all together, and as a human, I am there looking at that information every day and eyeballs on every single story before it's approved.
And then it goes through a correspondence, so to speak, I guess, quote unquote, called Borealis. So then is this where AI writes the article from the information?
AI puts all the information together and we are the human side of the team. So for example, over the last couple of months, we've actually made close to 90,000 human edits on those stories that have gone out. So I'd like to emphasize the human element here. Yep. We are finding these stories that they're not getting out to local eyeballs. So, for example, Garden Hill, you mentioned Garden Hill. It's a community 600 kilometres north of Winnipeg, and they have around 4,000 people in the community. I'm there publishing stories about a job at the local convenience store or the housing shortage. So these are stories that are out there, but Garden Hill does not have a local news outlet. Yeah. They just have us.
In terms of the AI component, because you very clearly, if you look at a picture, most of your photos on the site say AI generated on it.
That's correct.
Yes. Yeah. So if it were Garden Hill, how does that happen? Do you write in Garden Hill job posting or something, AI make me a picture, or how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We have those AI images to illustrate the stories. And as you say, they're all clearly labelled for that. People are visual. People like to see something, but we do label every single image. It doesn't always get it right. So, for example, I published a dirty floor brush on a curling rink. That was my hit. I missed that one. I don't know anything about curling whatsoever. But yeah, we are there to oversee that and use those images to illustrate the stories.
So you're upfront about the fact that AI can be wrong, obviously. Boring News tagline is actually, quote, no clickbait, just the facts, AI assisted, mostly accurate, getting better every day, end quote. Your homepage says AI can hallucinate, make up information. Not all mistakes are caught, though you try, before stories are posted. Mm-hmm. Why do you still post them? Because there's an inherent risk there in posting something that can be not factual.
Well, all stories that we post are based on the facts. So really the issue is the packaging. Maybe it's spelled the name of a person wrong or something like that. So all the stories are fact-based, but we've been working every week to improve the accuracy of the stories. We archived everything from last month backwards because we have a new system and we're getting better every day with that.
You took some heat from the Winnipeg Free Press recently.
Yes.
They published this article, Boring News. They called it, quote, news unfit to print. They claim your company is, quote, ushering in a fraught era of fake news in Manitoba. What's your response to that?
Well, the Winnipeg Free Press is a fabulous newspaper. It's excellent journalism. I'm not going to dispute that. It's been around since the 1800s. We've only been around for a few months. In terms of fake news, I would say no, everything is fact-based, everything is real. We're not fabricating anything, but the issue may be with some small pieces of accuracy. The big thing the Winnipeg Free Press didn't really go into is these news deserts. As you mentioned, there are more than 600 outlets have closed. We have opened 100 new outlets in the last few months to help serve these communities that have zero to little news. And we believe some news is better than no news.
It's interesting, and I'm going to push back just a touch, though, because while you say there could be small things that could be factually inaccurate, those things can blow up quite quickly, especially in today's climate. So especially if a photo is fabricated, like you said, and they're all fabricated, and then if there's it seems like a small thing with someone, but if it's some spelling of someone's name, what happens when it is an actual name that gets wrong, and then that's put out there? Is your goal to improve that?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay, so are you? And I wonder how, because I know you've actually recently asked the people that consume your site, you've put out a survey, right?
Yes. Well, our goal is to definitely improve every day. I would like to think that's everyone's goal. And our systems are much better now than they were a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And we're continuously improving. Yes, we put out a survey last week. We wanted to hear the opinions from the actual people in the communities, which is something I suppose that the Winnipeg Free Press didn't really get into. They had quotes from professors and things like that. We want to hear from the community and those people in the community whether or not the boring news is going to be useful to them.
Because the Winnipeg Free Press called it AI news slop. And a professor I know has said that you're not trusted. There's a Reeve calling it misinformation. Why isn't it? Why not lean into, you know what? We aren't going to get everything right, as you said, because the beginning premise was this is AI generated and some things are mostly right.
Yeah.
Why not lean into that? Why go now? Why now you're saying sort of you want to lean towards something that is more legitimate and maybe traditional news source?
We are completely open and transparent, and we always have been. And as you say, the tagline is mostly accurate. It's evolving every day. We are doing improvements every day, and we want to be more accurate. But as I say, the aim is to get news out to local communities where there's a huge gap, and we want to try and help with that.
There are some places where there's not gaps, I know, though, because many of the communities you cover do have papers. Selkirk, Steinbach, Morton, Winkler, just a couple of them. Are you concerned boring news actually could inadvertently make it tougher for the reporters in those centres because you're covering things in the way that you are?
I don't believe so, because we're not journalists. We're not there to replace mainstream media. We're there just to get the basics and just the facts. The journalists do a fantastic job of digging in and researching, whereas we're there just to state the basics. We're there for the plumbing kind of thing.
Got it. Would you consider changing your format then? I'm wondering whether or not, if you're getting things from, as you say, the facts, like press releases or PDFs, would you consider just being a site that posts the press release or verbatim? And it posts the PDF, if that's the factual part of what you're working with?
I guess for the regular reader, I'm not personally going to sit and read a full 17-page PDF from the government. I want to know what are the important facts within that document. What will affect me? What will affect my community? So that's the aim of what we're publishing.
Is it worth the risk, especially when you're covering something like, I'm thinking about stories like flooding in Peguis, or are there stories you wouldn't touch because it's not worth the risk?
Not really thinking so much about the risks, because we're looking at these basic stories that a community really, really needs. For example, a garbage schedule. I don't believe it's any less valuable if an AI has put that together rather than a human being putting together the garbage schedule for your local community. These are things in the community that people want to know about. They want to know about the road closures, the library opening hours, and that's what we're there for.
Where do you see the future of boring news going, given the tensions around AI and news right now?
In the future, I hope the boring news can grow. We are actually considering making it into a non-profit organisation. We've footed the bill completely for this so far. We haven't made $1 single of revenue.
That's okay. Your phone's ringing. It doesn't matter. It's live radio. People know. People get that. No worries.
That was my wake-up alarm. We haven't made $1 single on the boring news. I'll make that clear. We're considering making it into a non-profit so that we can put systems and structures in place to make it a sustainable piece of news for the community in the future.
Thanks for coming in and telling us all about it. I know a lot of people are talking about it, so appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Marcy.
That is Emma Kelly live with us on CBC. She's the co-founder of Upbeat Media, the Winnipeg tech company that's behind Boring News.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6, 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
8:26 a.m. Interesting conversation, that one. Mainly clear. It's 8 degrees in Winnipeg. Lots of sunshine. And if you were not smiling because of the forecast in southern Manitoba, then maybe you're smiling because of the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, which has begun. We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away to Friday night's New in Town Winnipeg Comedy Fest mega show. And we are taking entries until tomorrow at 8:20 a.m. So the end of our show pretty much tomorrow. So we can award the tickets. You can go out Friday night. So here's how you enter to win. There's a couple of ways. One of them was by leaving a joke on the listener line.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and this is my joke. If you're ever locked out of your house, all you have to do is speak very, very nicely to the lock on the door, because communication is key.
Hi there, I'm just going to tell you a joke. My name is Michael Webb. Why do witches wear black? Because then you don't know which witch does which.
I love the laugh at the end. That's my favorite part. That's actually the other way you can enter. If you don't have a joke, but you still want to enter, call and laugh on the listener line. Like, make yourself laugh on the listener line. Or maybe you've got a kid with an adorable laugh and you could get them to laugh on the listener line. I'd like to hear that too. 788-3205. Now, the other way you can enter, besides the phone, tell a joke or laugh on the line, is on YouTube. So if you watch us every morning on YouTube, because the show streams live, you can watch it, you can make a comment in the comment section. But we're looking for a joke, of course, because that's how you enter. So we're looking for you to tell a joke to us in the comment section of on YouTube if you're watching InfoRad there. We will, as I mentioned, collect these entries until tomorrow, end of show, and then somebody's heading out to the Comedy Festival. We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away to the Comedy Festival mega show on Friday night. So good luck. Let's get into what's happening on Radio Noon. Marjorie Dalhouse has popped into the studio to tell us about the call-in today. Hi there.
Well, hi, Marcy. I want to say Happy Earth Day
Happy
today.
Earth Day.
Yes, you've been covering Earth Day today here on Information Radio. We're going to continue the conversation this afternoon on Radio Noon. We want to hear from you. I'm not going to ask you anything complicated, but just want to know, what do you love about nature? What do you love about the earth? Maybe there's something special that you're doing to just enjoy the environment, protect the environment that you're in. Let's just celebrate nature and earth today, because that's what today is, right? Celebrating the earth and also recognizing what we can do to give back to Mother Earth. So give us a call, text us, share your stories after 12:30 on Radio Noon.
All right. Thanks, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
It's going to be beautiful today as well. If you are heading out for Earth Day events at the Forks, they begin, by the way, at 10 o'clock if you're looking for things to do. Well, just before the news here, I want to thank everyone who worked on today's program in particular. So associate producers Chloe Friesen and Kaylin Monkman, as well as from our news department, Heather Wells and Joni Nicolo and Darren Bernhardt out there. Megan Ketchison, who works in our unit as well. In our Studio 15 live crew, Corey Funk, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Marash. Thank you, guys. Our leaders in our unit, Nellie Gonzalez is the producer of the current affairs programs here on CBC Manitoba, and Leif Larson is the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. So thanks, everybody, for your work today on the show. And thank you for listening. We're not quite wrapped up yet here. If you spot anything on the morning commute, you can call us. It's been pretty good so far, but 788-3093 is where you still can reach Corey. And just, of course, a look ahead. While it is nice here down south, we do have warnings and watches for big parts of northern Manitoba with a snow system that's going to be moving in tonight over the next couple of days. Right now, it's time for your CBC News for Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 10 degrees. It's going to be beautiful. If you've been waiting for summer, this is going to be your day. Sunny to start, mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, a high of 22. But as Marcy mentioned, in central and northern regions, there is a risk of freezing rain. There's a winter storm watch and also a heavy snowfall warning. 30 to 50 centimeters over the next couple of days is possible. Manitoba's Justice Department is hiring a team to collect unpaid fines instead of asking a collection agency. Right now, the province gets a private company to seek payment on overdue fines, like speeding tickets. The province says that agency earns an 18% commission. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says that's too much. He wants to ditch the agency, so the province is the one collecting the overdue fines.
Here in Manitoba right now, the money's going to a private company, to private collection agencies. We know that if we bring it in-house, we can be more effective and we can collect more of those fines.
Wiebe says the government would have the power to ensure people pay up. For example, he says it could choose to block driver license renewals until penalties are settled. Peguis First Nation is putting the finishing touches on its flood defenses. The Interlake community has been sandbagging since last week as forecasts warn of the potential for a very serious flood in the coming days. Doug Thomas is Peguis's Director of Communications. He says 115 of the homes considered most at risk have been protected so far. Thanks, he says, to a great response by the community, the province, the federal government, and scores of volunteers.
It's bittersweet because we've never been so prepared, and we've done an amazing job. The team's done an amazing job at coming together, but we want to see a long-term solution. It's a shame that we have to keep doing this every year.
Peguis leadership has long lobbied for permanent protection. Some neighbors are raising a stink over a wastewater lagoon attached to a new Hutterite colony right on their doorstep. The lagoon is part of a development by the Crystal Springs colony in the RM of Armstrong. The RM of Gimli has opposed the project, saying it'll create negative consequences downstream. Fred Veldnick has lived in Silver Harbor for more than 3 decades. He says he's seen enough green algae blooms to know Lake Winnipeg has reached its limit.
Lake Winnipeg is not able to regenerate itself or to heal itself. So the only way we can help the lake become healthy again is by preventing any more effluent, any more nutrients from coming into the lake.
The project's backers say discharge from the lagoon would happen outside of fish spawning periods once or twice a year. Manitoba's Clean Environment Commission is holding hearings on the lagoon this week. The Crown is appealing a ruling allowing a Winnipeg man convicted in a senior scam in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia to get out of prison. Last month, a judge sent 25-year-old Charles Gillen home to Manitoba to serve a conditional sentence living with his grandparents. Gillen stole nearly $140,000 from more than a dozen seniors. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but the judge also gave Gillen more than 2 years credit for time he spent in pretrial custody, saying he was eligible to serve the rest of his sentence under house arrest. The Crown will argue that decision is wrong. It says the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled conditional sentences are only eligible for sentences less than 2 years in total and not 2 years after credits are subtracted. The Crown is seeking to have Gillen returned to prison. Well, the Liberals plan to take control of the House of Commons committees now that they've won a majority government. In a post last night on the platform X, House Leader Stephen McKinnon says there is an undeniable long-standing principle in Parliament. A party with the majority of seats in the House also has a majority on committees. So McKinnon is proposing most committees will now have 7 Liberals, 4 Conservatives, and 1 Bloc member. Young people are looking for jobs close to home in Steinbach. The area's Chamber of Commerce hosted a job fair this week. 25-year-old Max Franz from just outside Steinbach hopes to find a job where he can help others close to home.
The future is looking more and more uncertain, especially for younger people, for the younger generation. With gas prices going up, housing prices going up, food going up, a lot of us are feeling the pressure to become local more and more in a sense, not straying so far from home.
Tessa Massey at the Steinbach Chamber of Commerce says more than 100 jobs currently are posted in Steinbach. You can find more on these stories and the latest news as it develops. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, Heather Wells, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news center this morning, live. She's with us every morning on our team. All right, let's have a last look at this glorious commute.
Yes, it has
Glorious? That's not a word. Glorious? That's what I'm looking for.
very glorious out there. No, it's been very quiet overall. Haven't heard of any issues out there. But if you do see something, you can always give me a call tomorrow.
Here's Corey's cell phone. Call him anytime.
Yeah, exactly.
Abby.
Yeah, Marcy, snowfall warning. We're looking at 30 to 50 centimeters of snow coming towards the Thompson area, while for the Powell, we're looking at freezing rain. So Thursday is going to be filled with activities for folks in the northern part of the province. Down south, the hit today is the major headlines. Most of the regions would get to close to 23 degrees. So enjoy that sunshine. Winnipeg, we touched 22 today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, take care, everybody. Enjoy Earth Day, whatever you're getting up to today. If you're in the south, enjoy the sun. If you're in the north, you're preparing for the snow, but still enjoy your day, of course. And thanks for spending some time with us here at Information Radio on your public broadcaster on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on that app, on YouTube. Don't forget, you can still enter to win those gala tickets to the Winnipeg Comedy Festival. The show's tomorrow night, so you have to get your entry in before tomorrow at 8:20 AM. You can comment during our show if you're watching it stream live tomorrow morning, and you can leave us a joke in the comment section on YouTube. That's how you can enter, or you can call a listener line. Leave a joke or give us your best laugh. 788-3205, The Current, coming up next.